what Maureen or Carol looks like. I just want to make sure they're prepared.
Maureen and Carol.
Aren't they the first red-blue pair?
No, it's Don Bird and William Ellis.
Oh, okay. I know what they look like. Maureen and Carol this afternoon. Excuse me.
Okay.
Cool. And then, and what time is the platform getting read?
9 a.m.
Okay, cool. I'll just project it behind you guys when they're reading it.
We're going to give the stragglers a couple minutes and then we're going to get going. Good morning.
After all that BS about people showing up on time. I just want to know, I was here. I was on time. I want it noted and minuted that I was here. Yeah, jokes. Oh, what?
Our jokes have not been
Yeah.
apparently. That's critical feedback.
That you're, oh, really? Somebody was uptight about that? The problem is everybody's over. They're having.
So we're back in session here. We're calling you to order. Here's a fun fact for today. On this day in history, so today's June 22nd, in 1772 in England, the case of Somerset v. Stewart was decided. That was where the King's Bench decided that slavery was not supported by common law. And so that is what gave encouragement to the abolition movement. So thank you, Somerset. So there's several things we're doing with this convention. And last night was a perfect example of one of the very important things that we're trying to do here. We want to vote on the platform, and that's very important for setting our high-level directional, our priorities for the year. But we also want to be here and remember the transformational experiences that we have. And we want to deepen form and deepen relationships with each other, energize each other. So when we go back out of here after the convention, we continue the momentum and the membership and expansion. Now, last night were two of the most symbolic, definitional, transformative sorts of magical moments that we have come to expect with Better Angels. So one was a discussion and interview that I saw with Ray Warwick of the Tea Party and Hawk Newsom of Black Lives Matter. Ray is in the back there. Is Hawk here or is he left? Well, I want to give a round of applause, and I want to thank Ray Warwick and Hawk Newsom. The people who were here and witnessed and experienced that saw exactly what Better Angels is about. Can you bring together two people who both are emblems for what they stand for, but they're also human beings with values, and have them be totally who they are? There was no holding back about, no, this is what I'm passionate about. And yet they could have not just a polite conversation, but a deep conversation. And that was masterfully led by David Blankenhorn. So that was one of the magical moments that is what we're here to do with Better Angels. The other was a debate led by April Lawson, which I'm torn that I was at one magical moment. I could not bilocate and be at more than one magical moment, so I missed that. But the people who came out of that said, this is the most meaningful Better Angels moment I've seen. And that was a debate on American identity. So I want to thank all the people that put that on, and April, and a round of applause for her. So we're getting to the point where we're spreading magic around so much, it's like, you can't catch them all. So those are big parts of what we're doing here. Later today, we're going to spend a good part of the day on the platform, both this morning and then again this afternoon. So I've done my fun fact. I have done my introduction. Oh, that's right. Kelly is going to have some more announcements for us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? You know what? I'm not impressed with your prayers. I really am not. I don't know who's talking to the universe, but you're not saying the right things. All right. Well, anyways, a few announcements. Don Bird. Where's Don Bird? Hi, Don. He's going to be up here in not that long, I believe. Anyways, he's lost a light tan jacket. So if you find a light tan jacket, please return it either to the info desk or to Don Bird. Also, I just want to congratulate you because the lost composition notebook last night was recovered. Well done. Someone also recovered their computer, which had migrated under the stage. So don't put your computers under the stage, folks. Not recommended. A couple of other things. If you're still having thermostat issues, please go to the info desk and we'll continue to work with you. However, there's a little old-fashioned trick for temperature control, which you might not be aware. The windows in your dormitories do open. So if you're too cold, you can open a window. It doesn't work if it's too hot, but that is one way to solve the problem. If you are going to be checking out today, later this evening, just leave your linens on your bed. You don't need to return your keys. Don't take the linens home, please. We'll be charged for that. You've got your own at home, right? Hopefully? Okay. That's all from me for this morning, so we're going to turn it back to the chairs. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. I just thought somehow rain was also one of the things you could fix. It's really a short list of things you can't. If Dawn and William are here, go ahead and start to make your way to the stage. Don Bird. Yeah, come on up. And William. We have another red-blue pair. Don Bird is a blue. He's the Indiana State Coordinator, and he recruited William Ellis, a red, and he's the Republican county chair. Don invited William into Better Angels. They've been working together in Bloomington ever since.
Thank you. Is this working? Yeah, okay. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm delighted to be up here with William. One of the most remarkable experiences of my life. when starting 2 years ago, when I became aware of Better Angels and started to get involved, a little less than 2 years ago. Well, my first job as a blue was to find a red partner in Bloomington, Indiana, which is overwhelmingly liberal. And after fumbling around for a while, since I didn't know any conservatives in Bloomington at that point, I finally said, okay, I'll call the Republican county chair and ask him to recommend someone. And William said, I'd love to do it myself, and he's been as good as his word. So.
Well, first of all, nice to meet you, Don. It's nice to finally meet the guy. No, we have had a phenomenal group in Bloomington, and what Better Angels was doing, bringing, depolarizing, bringing the sides together, I had done previously. I'm on the internet a lot, and what I had found is some of the people that disagreed with me, that did the most name calling, before Better Angels along, said, how about we go out for a beer? You would be surprised how much can be solved over a nice cold beer or drinks. And if it's not solved, you're still getting a beer. So there's no downside. Well, anyway, these same people, and I think David Lapp, who was our moderator there at the time, and a couple others that, Kuyar, whatever he, they can testify. We have probably some of the biggest extremes in our group, but those are the people we need to bring together. And if it weren't for Don putting the foot forward, saying, hey, you want to take a risk, to me it wasn't a risk, it was, we need to do this. And if I want to put you, in Bloomington, people are afraid, and I'll say, Reds, business owners, people are afraid to say they're Reds because there'll be sanctions against them. They won't go to their business or whatever. They will be ostracized. If you guys want to know if we fail, what the country's going to look like, look at Bloomington, Indiana. That's what it's going to look like. And none of us want to stand for that, do we? No. But I'll hand it back over to Don, because I'll go on for another hour. I get 2 hours, right? No?
Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, that.
He says that because he knows it's true.
There's one other thing I wanted to say. One story it just occurred to me. I think is pretty interesting. As a result of William being the county Republican chair, I ended up attending the Lincoln Day fundraising event of the local Republican Party, and so at William's invitation. So when I walked in, I was late, as usual. When I walked into the room, I heard William saying, "Is Don Bird here?" He must have just said something about how impressive it was for a blue to be willing to walk into a room full of 150 committed Republicans, and I got a round of applause just for walking into the room. So it's been an amazing experience, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to David and Bill and everyone else to get this incredibly important ball rolling. I can't not do it. It's just so obvious, the need. Want to say any more?
I just want to thank everybody. Thank everybody for being here, for hearing our story. And I'm sure you'll have stories that are even better than this. And if I've done to Reds and a couple people, if you're not involved with your local party, I think you need to be. Because if you want change, the polarization starts with the candidates, with the media, but the political change, you got to work within the party. They're going to listen to their volunteers. They're going to listen to their donors. And if you're not one of them, your voice is not going to be as loud as it should be. We have our vice chair, our political director, and our party secretary. 5 out of the 4 leadership is in Better Angels. 4 out of 5. Thank you. I never promised. I was not a math major, so anyway. But thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Beautiful. Yes, the chair thanks William and Don and invites up David Blankenhorn to introduce the 2019 Better Angels platform.
Good morning. Well, today's a day where we really get to crystallize and just memorialize and say for the outside world to look at and for us to be guided by until our next convention. We get to kind of put out our plan, put out our priorities. Just kind of last is our founding convention. It was more like, well, who are we? You know, what is our vision of who we can be as better angels? And just kind of, I think of it as kind of identity, kind of forming an identity, you know, because we were just at the very beginning. This year, we use the word platform because it's not, we've kind of gotten farther than asking ourselves who we are, and now it's, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, how are we going to take that vision and identity and translate it into something that we can all agree will be our kind of North Star for the next 12 months until we meet again. So that's the platform. I want to remind you, I guess, more than anything, of the process. We had a leadership group, half red, half blue, that oversaw the first draft. We had a platform committee, again, half red, half blue, chaired by Jim Ewell, and I think there were 5 or 6 people on that, worked on the first draft that was then sent out to each of you, to all of the delegates. And a surprisingly large number of you actually took the time to read it and send in your comments and your reactions and what you liked and what you didn't like. You probably remember it was red, you know, do I have a red light? Do I have a yellow light? Do I have a green light? So we got lots of good feedback that way. The platform committee then redid it based on that feedback. And that's the document that you have in your packet. So it's the second version of things. Yesterday, in some of the breakout sessions, you had, many of you, the ones that were in those breakout sessions, had an opportunity to say more and hear more about some of the things that will be discussed in the platform discussion today. Also, you may remember when Jim was up here talking about the theory of change, you will remember that some of that is in the platform too. So hopefully there's quite a bit of feedback already in terms of amending the document to make it really what we want. This morning, as Marisa and Steve will explain, there'll be more opportunity to give feedback, to produce some, if there are any desirable changes that you all want to make, we'll have an opportunity to do that. And then by the end of the day, hopefully we will be ready to take a vote on something that we've all gotten our fingerprints on in a pretty careful way. And hopefully, depending on the vote, we'll have our North Star priority list for the next 12 months. So that's where we are. Did I miss anything? Anybody? Jim, Bill, anybody else? Okay, so this is kind of one of those fasten your seatbelts and do some real work today of a more, you know, it's not quite like yesterday, but it's very, very important for our future. So I really want to thank you in advance for the work that we're about to do.
Thank you, David. So I am excited to call up a number of folks who are actually going to read the... Okay.
See, David can bilocate. He's here and he's there. He's good.
That was extraordinary. Okay. So we're going to call up a few of our friends to actually read the platform for us. So I'd like everybody to come up. If you are going to read, Brian Benson for the preamble, Kelly Andino for the theory of change, as well as Joanne Luring. We have Luke Phillips on the Media Initiative, Riley Hart on the Public Policy Initiative, and Tom Sylvester on Partnership Initiatives.
Should I stand here?
That's terrifying.
Marisa, I don't know if Tom, can you ask if Tom Sylvester is here? Because I don't think he's here.
Okay. Do you want to do his?
Tom Smurley can do this instead.
Careful, Riley.
I'm Tom's understudy. We're switching Toms.
That is really weird.
Should I go ahead?
He needs a microphone. And then we give Brian a microphone.
Yes. I don't like that one. I'm going to give you this one.
Can everybody hear me? So let me commence with the platform with our opening statement. Better Angels was born in response to the crisis of polarization, a growing crisis that hampers government, destroys trust, degrades public discussion, fosters isolation, and harms personal relationships. Polarization tears at our social fabric as trust in our institutions reaches historic lows. Distrust of one another on the basis of politics reaches all-time highs.
Yeah. So we're just stopping for a second. We're not going to gavel or, but.
You know, I could try reading without a mic. I don't know.
No, what's happening is there's some extra programming coming through the speakers. That's what's happening. So do not worry. You're going to start over in a minute. Can I have your attention and all of the readers for just a second? When you hold the mic, it's like a straw you're going to drink from. If you hold it like this, sometimes it won't pick up, so you have to point the mic at your mouth. And inside, yeah. And sir, it's got to be close. You're almost eating the mic. You'll feel like it's unsanitary.
Okay. All right.
It's okay. They're having some technical difficulties. It's not your fault with the mic. So we're taking a break.
We're going to take a break? Okay.
No, we're just going to stand here for a minute because we're not sure. It's not at the moment, but it will in 10 seconds. So we're going to just wait for a second.
No, I'm hearing it still.
So it's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's just
The place is haunted, guys. Are we ready? Should we try it again? Okay. Both. Okay. Then they give me the phone call.
so Ben or Dalton.
Ben, are we good to go here? He says we're good. Woo!
So let me start over again. I want to maintain the momentum of this message, which is unbelievably important. Better Angels was born in response to the crisis of polarization, a growing crisis that hampers government, destroys trust, degrades public discussion, fosters isolation, and harms personal relationships. Polarization tears at our social fabric as trust in our institutions reaches historic lows. Distrust of one another on the basis of politics reaches all-time highs, and disturbing trends in race relations and in social and class friction point to increasing conflict. From its beginning, Better Angels has stood for understanding other people's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. We have stood for the importance of working together, despite our differences. We have stood for a love of country that demonstrates itself in the concern we bear to our fellow Americans. It is this patriotic empathy that allows us to break the spell of divisiveness and strengthen our common bonds. Proud of our origins, today in Convention Assembled, we look forward. Today, we dedicate ourselves to the great task before us to safeguard the spirit of our republic and to preserve its deepest unity. In our politics, let us work together when agreement is found and oppose one another in civility and good faith when it is not. In the work of Better Angels, let us build trust between individuals and restore trust in our institutions. Let us labor together to discover and cherish our common identity as Americans and to strive as one for the beloved community of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s imagining and the more perfect union of our founders' summoning.
The change we seek begins with changing ourselves. Our focus is grassroots, citizen-to-citizen changing of hearts. It's we the people depolarizing one another, and it's been Better Angels' main focus and success to date. In this part of our work, we seek both to renew our trust in one another and, in the process, build our civic muscle by increasing our membership and national visibility. How much grassroots success is necessary for us to influence the nation as a whole? Probably the best answer is 1%. Research shows that 1% of the people in a community, if organized and motivated, can significantly influence that community. We estimate that for Better Angels, the 1% tipping point is about 1.5 to 2 million involved and committed Americans. That's our long-term goal. To reach it, we will set intermediate goals along the way. And in the next 12 months, we will strive to develop new and online offerings to make the Better Angels experience available not just to thousands, but to millions of Americans each year. Changing ourselves is fundamental, but to depolarize America, we must also change our institutions. Changing ourselves happens inside and between us as individuals. Changing institutions requires focusing on society's guiding rules and structures. Better Angels' 3 institutional priorities are government, education, and media. Each requires its own approach. Changing governmental institutions requires approaches such as Better Angels caucuses within state legislatures and policy proposals developed by local Better Angels alliances. Better Angels debates can influence culture and possibly practices in colleges and high schools, as can Better Angels skills workshops in college freshman orientation programs. Changing the media presents probably the greatest challenge. But through example and incentives, including establishing a prominent audience for nonpartisan media, we hope to change this institution. We can also state generally the type of institutional change we seek. Our concern is less with specific outcomes than with establishing that an institution's rules, norms, and operating procedures create incentives for less polarization. To use the analogy of sports, we do not seek to change the rules or choose who wins the game, but we do seek to change how the game is played. Imagine a hockey game where fights take up 95% of each time period. That is the unfortunate reality of many of our institutions today. We strive to reduce the fighting so that healthy, robust deliberation leads to better outcomes for our nation.
Thought leadership. Our theory of change also requires thought leadership. Just as the Federalist Papers made the case for ratification of the Constitution, we must have thought leaders who make the case for depolarization. We seek a virtuous cycle in which individuals help to change institutions, and changed institutions in turn encourage more individual growth. Such a cycle can be initiated by leaders capable of defining and encouraging it. For Better Angels, that pump priming occurs throughout our growing network of thought leaders, scholars, and researchers, and in 2019 by establishing the Council for the Common Good. Critically, our theory of change requires us to reflect America. Thus, our rule of red-blue balance foundational for all that we do. In our red-blue workshops and alliances, in our campus work, and at every level of leadership, we are half red and half blue. Beyond reflecting the spectrum of political opinion, we must also strive to reflect our country socioeconomically, from working class to affluent, and we must continue to encourage participation and leadership from people of all genders, races, and ethnicities, so that our organization reflects the country we seek to serve. We can't serve our country if we don't reflect it. It is as simple as that. To be effective, we the people must truly be we the people. Finally, we are not alone in seeking this change. Many other organizations are also trying to reduce polarization, increase civility, and change the rules and norms of our institutions. Where it makes sense, we will collaborate and partner with organizations that share our vision and mission.
At our founding convention in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in June of 2018, delegates adopted an American Declaration stating our call to the nation and principles and program, offering guidelines and recommendations in the areas of citizen mobilization, media, scholarship, and public policy. To advance and build upon these founding ideas, today we adopt 3 priorities for new and further developed Better Angels initiatives in the next 12 months. Media Initiative, a 2019 to 2020 research and exploratory initiative will examine and test possible strategies for reducing the harmful effects of the media, analog, digital, and social, in modeling, encouraging, and incentivizing hyper-partisanship and polarization. Possible strategies for examination include the creation, dissemination, and ongoing monitoring of a voluntary media code of ethics, organizing Better Angels members and other consumers of media to take local action to support depolarizing media conduct, creating new media programming intended to model depolarization, and enlisting leading red and blue media personalities to model and publicly support depolarizing media conduct. This initiative will be coordinated by 2 Better Angels leaders, 1 red and blue, selected by the Better Angels Board of Directors. A report on the initiative, including measurements of success and recommendations for next steps, will be submitted to the 2020 Better Angels Convention.
A 2019 to 2020 pilot project involving the creation of alliance policy groups will test our ability to bring together interested red and blue Better Angels members at the local level and in equal numbers to examine and in some cases develop and propose public policies. The desired outcome is to demonstrate that Better Angel members working together at the local level can do what our elected officials at the national level seem largely incapable of, working together across party and philosophical lines to offer constructive proposals. Each local alliance policy group participating in the initiative will choose and develop its own proposal. The resulting proposals as a group will therefore be diverse and, as regards content, not necessarily in agreement with one another. nor will the content of the proposals be specified or directed by the national organization, which does not and will not take policy positions. This pluralistic local approach to policy discussion and development is intended to encourage local innovation, respect the reality and importance of viewpoint diversity in a free society, and model for elected officials in both parties and in all levels of government a process of respectful, fair-minded collaboration that they might profitably learn from and seek to imitate. The project will operate according to 5 basic guidelines. Participation is optional for all alliances and all Better Angels members. Alliance policy groups are created by and accountable to local Better Angels alliances. The composition of each local policy group will follow the Better Angels rule of half red and half blue participants. To be adopted by a Better Angels alliance, a proposal emerging from a policy group must be endorsed by at least 75% of the alliance's red members and 75% of its blue members. Better Angels as a national organization does not and will not develop, endorse, oppose, or comment on matters of public policy. The pilot project will be coordinated by 2 Better Angels leaders, 1 red and blue, selected by the Better Angels Board of Directors. A report on the pilot project, including measurements of success and recommendations for next steps, will be submitted to the 2020 Better Angels Convention.
That's good.
The third and final initiative for the coming year is the Partnerships Initiative. Over the next 12 months, Better Angels will actively explore partnerships with other organizations. We seek mutually beneficial partnerships in order to reach more Americans, to be better stewards of our resources, learn from and assist organizations who share our mission, and accelerate our nation's overall progress toward depolarization. In considering whether and under what conditions to propose or agree to partnering, we will first ask and seek to answer the following questions. Does the prospective partner share our values and vision? Will the partnership build goodwill and better friendship? Will the partnership be mutually beneficial? Will the prospective partnership help Better Angels achieve its goals of red-blue balance and reflecting America? How balanced and representative is the prospective partner itself? Does Better Angels have the resources to manage the prospective partnership effectively? And finally, does the benefit of the partnership outweigh its costs? Pending the answers to these questions, the initiative will explore, and in some cases test, various forms of partnership at the local and national level, which are presented below in ascending order of complexity and breadth. 1, organizations proposing or agreeing to bring Better Angels programs to their members. 2, organizations proposing or agreeing to partner with local alliances for projects or events. 3, organizations proposing or agreeing to trade favors with us, for example, each group promoting the other on its website or via email to its members. 4, organizations seeking our agreement to join their organization or network. And 5, organizations proposing or agreeing formally to combine or merge some or all of their programming with ours. This 5th and closest form of partnership, organizations proposing or agreeing to formally combine or merge some or all of its programming with ours, must and can only occur according to actions taken by the Better Angels Board of Directors. This initiative will be coordinated by the president of Better Angels and by 2 Better Angels leaders, 1 red and 1 blue, selected by the Better Angels Board of Directors. A report on the initiative, including measurements of success and recommendations for next steps, will be submitted to the 2020 Better Angels Convention.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you to all of the readers. Are you guys excited about this platform? I mean, this is some pretty cool stuff. My mind is already going to like all of the other potential organizations that are doing similar work that we can share in this pool of people that are excited and expand from there. So I am personally really excited about it. So I just want to make a reminder to something that David said earlier. Each of those sections that you just heard will turn into breakout sessions a little bit later. So if there's any area that you really want to dive a little bit deeper into, you'll have an opportunity to do that a little bit later. But as David mentioned, we've all, I hope everybody has seen this before. There's been input that's provided, and that's what created such a great final result. But there's a little bit of time to still do a few more revisions. So I'm going to invite up Bill Doherty to have questions of clarification on the platform and the process.
Yes. All right. Good morning. Oh, you don't have to be that tepid with your applause. Yeah. I'll repeat, you do not have to be that tepid with your applause. The thing is, when you have to beg for it, it doesn't feel the same. So just to review, what we're going to do now is we're going to have questions of clarification about the platform. And then we've got a good long time for that. And then we're going to have a break. And then you're going to have a choice. If you have input for any of the parts of the platform, which are the preamble, conclusion, theory of change, media initiative, public policy initiative, or partnerships initiative. If you have input for any of those, then you'll go to that breakout session. And we have an organized process to harvest input, and there will be 2 people, a red and a blue, from each of those breakout groups who will go to a drafting committee over lunch to make any final changes that come out of that deliberation. So this is a semi-final document. And then the drafting committee will work over lunch. We're going to feed them, and they're going to come back, and we're going to see the final document that will now have been vetted twice, and we will do an up or down vote on that. So that's the process. So if you have input into one of those sections, then you'll be then we invite you to go to that breakout. If you don't have input into those, then there are some other, there's a debate on gun rights, gun control, debate on political correctness, and a new initiative that we haven't yet rolled out, but we'll do some pilot on here, of one-to-one structured conversations between a red and a blue, where you'll get to talk about a little bit of your past, some issues that are important to you. So those are the other options. And for now, the floor is open for questions of clarification about the platform. Now, questions of clarification are not an argument for or against, okay? They are clarifications. So I will structure this a little bit. If somebody says, I want to clarify how that stupid idea got into that, is not exactly a question of clarification. So let's start. Go for it.
Good morning, Mark Epstein. I'd like to first applaud everybody that had a hand in this document. Amazing. My question is in the public policy initiative. There's a statement that says the policy groups will, in some cases, develop and propose public policies. Later it says that the national organization does not and will not develop, endorse, or oppose matters of public policy. So I understand that this is Alliance is developing this, and I'm wondering if the statement should not specifically say that those policies are relevant to their
So
respective
you're
local
making a
communities.
proposal, so I'd like you to do it as a clarification
So the
question.
clarification is that it's speaking strictly relevant to their local communities.
So put it as
the
a question
policies
so I
are.
get it. So what's the question? So just so I frame it up.
Are the policies that the alliances will be making strictly relevant to their local communities, rather
Or could they also be broader? Is that get it?
I don't know how they could be broader because a local community could not fix immigration.
Yeah, so, right, so that's the intention, that it's local policies. Did I get that? Yeah. So we want somebody from that group now to clarify the question.
Steve Saltwick, are you here?
Yeah, so please come up. Yeah, so folks, the people who wrote the parts of the platform need to be up here, because I certainly can't answer it. You wrote the darn thing.
I haven't read it lately.
Or were you sleeping while we were doing that?
No. The intention is that the local policy group within an alliance works on something that they are extremely interested in and passionate of. We have a few pilots going on. The scope of those span from a local thing, working with, say, local high school students to increase their knowledge of civics, to something that would result in a an amendment to the Constitution. So the scope of this is quite broad. The effort involved will be very different, and the success rates will be very different. But in the policy platform, there is scope to work on anything that is passionate and important to the Alliance.
Great. Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Great, thank you. Stay up here.
Oh, just in case there's incoming, you know.
Yeah, oh, okay. Go for it, yes.
Hey guys, I'm Rustin Burr, Sheridan, Wyoming, and I just had a couple points of clarification. In the changing institutions portion, better outcomes for our nation. The person who wrote that, could you define what you would consider a better outcome for the nation?
I think it's the same outcomes as we are seeking with Better Angels, right? That is reducing the forces that are tearing, families and people apart, okay? And also reducing the gridlock and being able to more effectively provide solutions for the country, okay? So the same outcomes that we are looking for Better Angels, that's the outcomes that we are looking for from change in our institution.
And then you hit a second.
Yeah. And then in the public policy initiative, do what our elected officials at the national level seem largely incapable of. Obviously, because they're the elected officials, they're in office, they're the ones that can actually change things. Is the goal to just, through the process of getting people on board, is the process to just, how do we end up making that change? Making what our politicians are largely incapable of, changing their behaviors to what we want.
The point is to model behavior we would like them to copy, right? I think we have found in local instances, many politicians work together, right? It seems to be a skill lost at the national level. So the scope of the policy is we will model the behavior, which then is expressed in the rules of the game. Is that fair enough?
Just very, sorry. Just very quickly on this point, I don't know if Charles Heckscher is here, but he and his daughter, who are very active Better Angels leaders, told us, based on experience, that this almost never happens. The idea that when you present to your local officials something that's actually coming from both sides, they don't see that. What they almost always see is special interest lobbies sending them mass postcards or something. So all I want to say is that based on our initial feedback from people who are in politics, if we do this and do it the right way, this will be very unusual. This will be a real different kind of input than these people are used to getting.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Yes, go for it.
Bruce Moreland from Northfield, Minnesota. I had a question about clarifying the terms, and this may be way off scope, but is the real concern with the word polarizing because we talked about this in the media group yesterday, that what we're really concerned about, I think, is angry, vitriolic, personal, ad hominem nastiness. We aren't really able to solve the polarizing because that's the difference of opinion. So can we get a clarification?
So frame it up then.
Framing it as a question.
What's the question?
When we use the word polarization, should we modify that with something to emphasize that what we're really concerned about is vitriol?
And so that was also a proposal, but we'll take it as a clarification. Why did you guys use polarization and not substitute language? Preamble, authors?
What we mean by polarization is what the preamble begins with, that the description about trust as an all-time low, disagreements about breaking up families, that was that's the intention of defining what we mean by polarization. I'll just say it's an incredibly difficult task to figure out the one word. You just tried to define it, and you used about 7. Yeah. And that's the word. Plus, polarization is a difficult word. It's kind of an academic term. It's not perfect. We may want to continue to think about other ways to say it. What we tried to do in this document was to say it first in the preamble, to say in easier to understand terms what we mean, in that we don't mean polarization by meaning disagreements about politics. See, that was not part of the definition. We disagree about a tax policy or something. It's more the feelings of what you just said, vitriol, anger, and so on. The academic term for this is affective polarization, polarization that's about your attitudes, but that even is a more complicated thing. So anyway, that's the sort of background discussion of that word.
Okay, great. Randy, you've got somebody.
Yes, Dave Ryan, Olathe, Kansas. Preamble, second paragraph, last sentence. Some of my colleagues' clarification do not understand the nature of some kind of a magical spell having been cast over the country to create some kind of an evil divisiveness. It's a rather strange word to use. Clarification, please.
So clarify say it again, yeah. Clarify.
Of this breaking of a spell, and some of my readers don't understand.
Clarify the breaking of the spell. The national spell, okay. Clarify that term.
Where's John?
John is meeting with Hawk.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Oh, John is not meeting with Hawk. Yes, we need you, John. That was your term. So explain did you hear the question?
No, I'm happy to hear it again.
Just answer it anyway, John, even if you didn't hear it.
John, some of the delegates had a question about the use of the word spell, break the spell.
Break the spell.
It denotes a kind of magical something or other. So what is the clarification of the use of the word spell, break the spell?
Right, yeah. Well, obviously the term spell is metaphorical in its application here, but what it's meant to signify is the truth that what we feel to be the fact that we are in a cultural moment wherein the norm of polarization and vitriol and demagoguery is one that we have sort of accepted as inevitable in our political dialogue. And so to break the spell, it's to show people that there is a different way of engaging our politics and our conversation that is actually realistic, that is actually actionable. So people will see that there's an alternative way for us to treat each other. So hopefully that clarifies.
And an example, he's shaking his head, which is fine. This is clarification. Go to that session and argue to change the wording. Okay? Honestly, that's what this is about. He just clarified, I got this, then that means go to the if it's a big enough deal for you, go and argue your case, because we can change language. So, Kuyar.
Hi, I'm Rick Olson from Prior Lake, Minnesota. One of the things that concerns me about the original draft, and again this draft, is the whole idea of public policy initiatives. And the reason that I'm concerned about this is...
So do you get to your question soon, though, because this isn't the time to argue it, but to get clarification.
I'm not arguing about it. I just want to give the preamble, okay?
Yeah, so...
Please don't interrupt me.
Okay, but I'm looking for a clarification question eventually.
Okay, I will get there. So to the extent that there's public policy initiatives developed by local alliances that is developing some public policy, does get into politics. So what concerns me is whether this will actually drive away reds. And what is one of the real questions then gets to the number 4 is to be adopted by Better Angels Alliance, the proposal emerging from a policy group must be endorsed by at least 75% of the Alliance red members or 75% of the blue members. So is that 75% of the Alliance members who are present at a Alliance meeting? Or we have a membership of our Alliance which is quite a bit larger than that. Let's say it's 30 and we have 4 Alliance members show up. You know,
Yeah, what's that mean? What's
that mean?
75%? What's the denominator?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Public policy? Yeah.
What I would say from the intent of the policy is specifically not to drive away reds, but to attract them, to not drive away blues, but to attract them. And I would say the intent of the policy is that the majority, a super majority of the alliance agrees to that. So how that is implemented, it could be talked about in the outlying session, but it is not that 4 reds showed up one day and 3 of them voted while there's 30 reds in the alliance. That's not the intent. The intent is that it accurately reflects the will of, you know, an unequivocal majority of the organization.
Okay. So, Randy, do you have somebody?
Hi, I'm Brenna Bree from Pennsylvania. I have also another question for clarification on the seemingly largely incapable of public officials. I happen to have a House of Representatives member who works bipartisan, and so as I was listening to this, I was imagining going to him and talking to him about this, and I can see both sides of why that is in there. It's to motivate us, but it might turn him off.
So, and your question is...
Yeah, thank you, dear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
thank
right.
you.
There's a question there. Go for it.
So my question is what is the motivation for putting in a little bit of a negative evaluation of our elected officials?
Thank you.
Okay. So again, this would be a good thing to talk about in our breakout.
Yes.
The intent of the policy was not more on the negative, but more on the positive. I think the modeling of behavior, we would say, at the local level is very widespread and should be more evident at state and national levels. There was not the intention to say there is no national leader that operates in a bipartisan manner. Clearly there are, and you know one. So the intent of the policy discussion was look at the local level for the best evidence of the positive, where I think we all see the best evidence of the negative at the national level. There was not the intent to say there is no one at the national level that does that. So that's something we can talk about in the breakout.
Okay, thank you. So way in the back, we want to make sure we get some folks in the back here as well.
He just,
Okay, we'll go front first and then back, yeah.
Hi, I'm Julie Bowler from Raleigh, North Carolina. In the partnership initiative, I see that for the 5th level, the board of directors would have to approve that kind of connection. And I couldn't tell if the first 4, what the process would be. You know, is there some official way to bring in a partnership? And is there a process, it's 2-part, is there a process by which members could submit a possible organization for a partnership?
Thank you for the question. In the drafting of this plank, in early drafts, we had it all spelled out. What level of approval will be necessary by whom for what type of partnership, national, local, temporary, permanent, very narrow partnership, very broad. Well, it ended up in like a spreadsheet. And we didn't want to stick a spreadsheet into the platform. That we realized that rather than, it got too complicated. So it's going to be left to the president and the two Better Angels leaders, who likely will bring in others to work out these kinds of details. But we stuck in that fifth one because about the board of directors on the fifth thing, because that would be so dramatic, and so we wanted to underscore that. I will say that, and in all likelihood, the more local, the narrower, the more compatible the organizations, the more the decisions will be made locally. And the opposite goes true for the national ones.
Okay. Just one other thing I'd say in regards to that. This document is meant to live until the next convention, right? And our intent is to experiment and come up with a process throughout the year. So we didn't want to put a process in, this document now that might change throughout the year. So that was also part of the thinking. Okay?
Thank you. Back over here, please.
Mark Beckwith, Worcester, Massachusetts, and this is rather granular. This is a splendid document, but is there a process to go over grammar and punctuation? Because I came up with a whole bunch.
All right. Go to the grammar breakout section. Special.
It's too good to allow some little errors to happen.
Absolutely.
So who do I give them to?
It's actually, we laugh, but it's very valuable to get this kind of feedback. So I'm going to be chairing the lunchtime revisions discussion. So if anyone would hand me a marked up thing that says, here are the grammar or infelicitous phrase, just say, I mean, seriously, if you catch a typo, obviously we can't have any of that. So just hand it to me, or if you don't see me, you could hand it to anyone else up. Well, you could hand it to Jim or me, or if we can't find us, hand it to, I guess, Kelly. but anyway, it'll get to us. So thank you for that.
Great.
And if you want to do it electronically, just send it to jim@betterangels.org, okay?
Okay, great. So you're running around here too, so don't be up with us. So Randy, go for it.
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm Dave Green from New York. Question about the partnerships. If a local alliance wants to partner with a local organization that's also part of a national organization, and on a local level, we agree to a lot of policies. What happens when there might be a conflict of interest along the national level?
So Tom was otherwise distracted, and he's our partnership guy.
Hi, otherwise distracted. I'll distract you again. So in the partnership question, if a local alliance or a local group gets a partnership with, let's say, a local Rotary, okay, or something like that,
right. And
because we have come to common agreement, yet there might be some differences on the national level, how does that get resolved?
This train has already left the station, as many of you know, that local alliances have been forming some of these partnerships, not just with service organizations, but with libraries and so forth, and churches. As I understand the question, you're wondering how would it get resolved if there's a conflict between the local organization and the national of the partner organization? Well, we haven't gotten to that granular level yet, but I think that's a good illustration of why we haven't gone into that level of detail. Every partnership, local and national, is very unique. They don't fit easily into a small set of categories. So that's going to have to be decided on a case-by-case basis, and we're going to have to develop a process for making those decisions. At a minimum, the local alliances will in all likelihood require the approval of the state coordinator and the notification of national leadership, just kind of at a very minimum.
Great, thank you. Over here, please.
Good morning, Kate Quinn from Las Vegas, Nevada. Looking at the thought leadership section, I'm curious about the Council for Common Good and wonder if you could describe what the vision was for that and how that might work.
Yeah, that's a great question. The concept that we discussed last year at our founding convention was that we would get together, we would convene a group of scholars and researchers and people who are the analysts, public intellectuals, to kind of be our think tank, to kind of give us, be a resource for us in terms of the scholarly world and the public, the writing and scholarly world. So the idea was to have about 10 or 15 scholars and researchers, half red, half blue, a red co-chair, a blue co-chair, the typical way we do it. And a number of people in this room have said, I'd like to either be on it or help to organize it. We just haven't done it. And it's really probably on me because there just always seem like more urgent things to do than to start this initiative. We even have some possible funding for it. So it didn't happen last year. But so it's in this year's platform to state an intention to pull together this kind of group of researchers and scholars to help us over the course of the next year.
Did that answer the question enough? Okay, thank you. So who do we have next? I can't see where you're pointing. Yeah, right here. Yeah, go for it.
I'm Deb Smith from Nashville, Tennessee. In the preamble, in the final sentence, it refers to the beloved community of Reverend Martin Luther King's imagining. Some people would understand Reverend King's beloved community to be a pretty complex theory of economic and social justice deeply rooted in Christian theology. Others would understand it to be a reference to the I Have a Dream speech. I'm curious as to what the what understanding the writers had.
Okay, thank you. Writers? Yep.
Well, first of all, thank you for drawing attention to that phrase. First of all, some larger context just with respect to the sort of approach taken to formulating the language of the preamble, and you'll see this echoed in some of the larger language that we use at Better Angels, including in David Blankenhorn's State of the Union address. Part of what we seek to do is to contextualize the mission of Better Angels in the context of American traditions that are recognizable, at least to many of us, right? And so there are certain things that are referenced in the document that call attention to moral tradition as a way of providing the spiritual and cultural undergirding of what it is we seek to do. Now, with respect to the specific reference, the reference of the beloved community, my understanding of the beloved community, and I'm a person who's spent a great deal of time studying Dr. King and the nonviolent philosophy, is that this is a community that reflects the ethos of love as a transformational social and interpersonal value that calls upon us to recognize the dignity of everybody involved in the community, including our opponents, including those who we may perceive as being in the wrong, intellectually and morally, and that along with that, there's a component of radical inclusivity, where as a virtue of extending this love and this graciousness, we bring everybody into the conversation. So, I'm certainly of the opinion, and I think we're of the opinion, that the work of Better Angels is in line with that value, in line with that tradition, and thus it seemed an appropriate moral and cultural reference to include in the document.
I could have said that. but I let him say it, just for the record. Yes, over here. Yeah.
John, I might give you another chance to speak. So I just wanted to understand, I'm James Cohen from Washington, D.C. I just wanted to understand the context of the media initiative. This is about testing strategies for reducing the harmful effects of media. So does this mean that the existing Better Angels media continues as it has been going, but this is an additional element specifically about harmful effects?
So I can speak to that, although I'm not necessarily the author of that particular portion. But yeah, I mean, the existing Better Angels media, first of all, Better Angels editorial strategy and mission is very much evolving. And some of you will have participated in our media sessions yesterday, and you have a sense of sort of where that trajectory is, what some of the questions we're seeking to answer in developing that. But certainly, the reference to harmful effects is one that is going to represent and does represent a core focus of our evolving media strategy, because ultimately we want to both model a more constructive type of media output while also incentivizing those who are already creating media, and I mean on the higher institutional levels, your cable news and talk radio, but also just in the level of digital media, independent content creators, to put something out there that people can sort of respond to and that we can ultimately sort of use as a means of motivating a different type of behavior that is in line with the type of values that it is we're seeking to promote at Better Angels. So part of that has to do with content creation. Part of that potentially has to do with recognizing and praising journalists and commentators and pundits who do model a depolarizing sort of ethos. So there's potentially a wide range of activities that could be included in the goal of that phrase. But that is the essence of what it is we seek to achieve within that.
So what is new versus continuing from it?
Oh, I see. Well, there's there are a number of things that are on the table, and similar to the point that was made about spreadsheets, we didn't really want to go into a long sort of itemization of different things that are being considered, just for, just on the basis of the fact that space is limited. But this is to open the door for consideration of things that are projects that are aimed specifically at motivating this new type of media behavior. And so this opens the door for a larger dialogue.
And that's the new part, that expanded.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So a new focus on, basically it is opening the door for a new focus on an expanded array of activities aimed at just that.
Great. So we have our runners here, so in the back, yeah. We have somebody over here, I think.
Itara Samaros from New Orleans, Louisiana. I wanted to address in a theory of change, two sections about changing ourselves and reflect America. My question is, would it be possible for there to be more distinguished methodology to how we can accomplish those two initiatives for inclusion, to reflect America, and also give people more of a roadmap how to go about the process of changing themselves? Thank you.
So the question is about the level of specificity, considerations of why not more specificity. Did I capture that?
Yeah. Sorry. Just as you have listed different initiative points,
yeah.
There's a methodology to help people to change themselves. And there's a methodology to increase our level of inclusion so that we can better reflect America.
Yeah, and why not get into that methodology here like we did elsewhere?
Exactly. Yeah. Can we do that in the next session? Is that part of what's going to be happening?
Sure, you could. And for here, it's what was the rationale for this level of specificity in this document?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
That's right.
Is that something that's going to happen next, or was that just overlooked, or what?
So absolutely, you have a chance to provide that feedback and say that we should include that level of specificity in there, okay? I think we chose not to because we're still figuring that out, okay? I don't know that I have all the answers for that, and I need people like you and others to provide some of the suggestions for that. We have some methods that we've used, like we've used the Red Caucus as a way to try to figure out, how do we attract more Reds. We have also formed some other caucuses to do that. That may be one way to do that. There may be others, but yes, we need to hear about that in the next sessions.
And the other part of it was changing ourselves with the level of specificity there. Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand.
So she had two areas, right? One was the Reflect America, yes, and the other was the changing ourselves. Did you want to respond to?
Well, we actually do have a methodology now for changing ourselves. It's a new workshop called Depolarizing Within, and it starts out with a self-assessment, and then there's a section towards the end of how to redirect polarizing comments and behavior within your own group without getting voted off the island. So I think that's, is that online yet, or is it still in beta testing? It'll be ready to roll out in July. And of course, there are other steps, including the Red-Blue workshops.
Thank you. Okay, so we have my runner right here. Yeah.
Rena Bernards from Maryland. I'm looking at the part about Reflect America. And there's the comment, reflect our country socially, economically. And then it goes to specify working class to affluent. And I'm wondering if it's inadvertent or on purpose leaving out fixed income, poor, unemployed. Would it, yeah, that's my question.
Mm-hmm. You get the hard ones.
I guess I do. It was just a matter of drafting the language, and I don't know did we have at one point like a list along? I think we did at one point have it as, some of the categories that you mentioned, and we just decided to simplify the language. So it wasn't it was just around making it shorter and simplifying the language and that sort of thing. It wasn't to leave out any of those categories. So that was the. Yeah.
Hi, Miles Eddy, Bloomington. Bottom of page 3, media initiative. And incentivizing hyperpartisanship and polarization confused me in the context of that sentence.
Okay, so.
Yeah, let me just read the sentence.
Okay.
Research and explore initiative and examine and test possible strategies for reducing the harmful effects of the media and modeling, encouraging, and incentivizing hyperpartisanship and polarization. It kind of seemed opposite of what it was confusing to me.
Yeah, okay.
And the B part of that question is what do you mean by incentivizing?
Yeah, the intention of that sentence is to say that there are incentives in the current media world that lead to polarization. So, for example, the search for clicks. The idea that you can get more viewers by inflammatory guests than so those are the incentives we were talking about. I agree. I see your concern for the confusion of that sentence. It's almost like, are you encouraging, incentivizing hyperpartisanship? That is not the intent. So perhaps you may want in the next session or through a note to propose a clarification of that sentence.
Yeah, that's part of why we have that final drafting committee, because there's some stuff, if a number of people go, you read it 4 times and you don't know what it means, it probably needs to be redrafted. So over here, yeah.
Cynthia Fry, Alabama, short and sweet. Under Reflect America, I have been impressed with the number of young people that are in the leadership, and I wonder if we need to include something like where it says people of all genders, races, and ethnicities, maybe add something like and generations or something
So,
to
so that's a
protect.
proposal.
Okay.
So I suggest you go to the breakout and make that proposal.
It's 2 words. Can I just ask
Okay,
for
you put
clarif-
it out here now. Okay, but we're mostly looking for clarifications right now. Oh, you snuck it in. Okay, got it.
Maybe
Okay.
not short and sweet.
We hear you. Yeah.
So can we make sure that that the young people's participation will be protected in the wording?
Thank you. Thank you. This gentleman has had his hand up for a while. Luke, this gentleman has had his hand up for a while.
Thank you. I'm Rob Weidenfeld from Cincinnati, Ohio. And my question concerns the deliberations that you're going to make over lunch. I'm curious as to if you have decided to weight the various arenas in which you have received input. For example, all of the work you did preparing the document and getting information from delegates, then what you're hearing now, and then what you're going to hear in the breakout sessions. How are you going to weight that?
I'm going to, yeah. Well, I'll tell you the process that's going to happen in the breakouts. There's going to be a comments from the main authors of those sections about the revisions that were made based on the initial round of feedback. So just 2 minutes on these are the changes he's already made. And then there's going to be a brief time for enthusiasms. What do you really love about this? And then the next one is concerns and fixes. And we'll go through that. And there will be a conversation. And looking to see if there's any consensus that evolves. It's just not going to be everything that everybody puts down goes forward. There's going to be a conversation. And then we're going to ask 2 people, red and blue, from each of those groups to be on a drafting committee. And at that drafting committee, in a kind of ex officio way, will also be the original authors. David Blankenhorn will chair that. And that group will spend a couple hours on this. This worked last year. So there's nothing automatic because somebody has an idea. It gets in, right? So there's not like the 11th hour and 59 minutes somebody had some idea and it wasn't really thought through. And so we're just hoping that this organic process will lead to a good outcome. Oh, I'm sorry. I was supposed to go over here.
Just wait right here. We'll do it next.
Yeah, so we'll get there. We got a lot of folks, but I had promised over here next.
Good morning. My name is David LeCook. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm confused, but that's not difficult to do. Just ask my wife. I'm interested in the policy initiative pilot. Is that basically at this stage a blank slate that the breakout group is going to begin to formulate how and the ladder, if you will? Or do you folks have some idea of how you're going to take initiatives that are developed, in cities, counties, whatever, and states, and move that up for consideration by Better Angels as a whole?
So the intent of the document is that we will take the policy initiatives are a function of the local alliance. They are not bounded in scope, but they must be agreed to by the preponderance of the membership. There are at least 3 in active process now. Some use a process that we are working with Charles on. Here's a standard way to get them done. Others are self-generated, like one out of Ohio. And so there is freedom for that. But best practices, in other words, what is working, and more importantly, what is not working, is going to be shared with Riley and myself at the National Alliance level. We'll communicate that on calls, et cetera. So the point is, there is a freedom of plurality at the local level, and then the national level is not going to bureaucratically control that, but communicate best practices and what works.
Yes, but there will not be policy proposals sent to national for national's approval. There's no ladder up. Right. There's no plan in here for national to take any policy positions whatsoever.
Then I'm a newbie, first involvement with this group at all. Is the local alliances then, are they, what's the geography of something like that? I mean, are we talking living rooms? Are we talking county, state, what?
There's 36 alliances in the United States right now. They span from a dozen members to 65, 75 active members. So they're all over the place. They are being created, and that's a good lay of the land. Is that?
And so some of them are a city or a county. Some of them are, yeah, a region. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
We're glad to help.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Jarvis, Durham, North Carolina. Good morning. Real quick, this is truly point of clarification. Page 4 at the top.
We'll be the judge
It
of
says
that.
voluntarily media code of ethics. Has that been created or is that yet to be created?
Yeah, I think you should take that.
We have started to draft something, but there's nothing that we're quite ready to share on that. So there's still a lot of work to be done on that media code of ethics. We've just started to kind of think through it and talk to some people about it, and it's in extremely rough draft. I mean, there's just a few things there. So it's not very far along is the way I describe it.
We did have some conversations about this topic in our media groups yesterday, and there's certainly a reason to consider it closely. But part of the reason why we wanted everybody's input at this convention was to understand how to prioritize certain things that we were considering putting real energy to as we go. But it's definitely something worth pointing out.
Okay, back here.
Yes, Mike Radke from Michigan. First of all, this is a remarkably good document, okay? And the thing I like about it is it gives us general direction, okay? I think part of the challenge for me and others in my question is, will there be a follow-up to like, okay, we're going in this direction, how are we going to do this, okay? Which I don't think is appropriate for this document.
So the question again is, what's the follow-up?
Yes.
Yes. Will there be follow-up, and if so, what would that look like? So please hand it to him.
Yeah, that's a really great question. The way we're thinking of it now is that, as the thing says, there'll be two leaders of it that will be two leaders, national leaders of it. For example, Riley, where's Riley? Well, anyway, and she and Steve here we will appoint them the leaders of the public policy initiative. We don't have the other people appointed yet, but the idea we'll have two national coordinators, and they'll draw upon people's input, including some of the people in this room. But that's as far as we've gone with it. That we'll have two people that will be who are on our national leadership team, who will be the coordinators of each initiative.
And then they'll report back next year at the convention?
Right. The other thing is that we will present a report to next year's convention saying, here's what happened, here was the successes, here were the failures, and here's our recommendations for going forward or not going forward, and that'll be discussed.
And it's probably a good time to remind us that this is a document for this year. This is not the Constitution of Better Angels forever. Okay, and so just want to keep that in mind. This is the guiding light for this next year. So we have time for a few more. Okay, yep.
No, can I just?
Oh, sure.
Just one elaboration at that point. So in terms of public policy, this will be communicated to the Alliance co-chair call, where the state coordinators are invited as well, right? So we will have a forum for interim updates, especially especially if something is really working well or something is really not working well, we will communicate that through the monthly Alliance call.
Okay, great.
Bill Fry from Blanchester, Ohio. My question is on the partnership initiative, and it's the very last paragraph. My question for clarification, it makes it appear that there would be just simply the president, one red and one blue, who would decide who we partnership with from the leadership team. Is that actually just for coordinating, or is this for actually selecting and approving that? I mean, I would think more than just one red and one blue would be needed from the partnership team to approve the partnership.
of another group.
Right. The composition of that group wasn't discussed in detail, but in the discussions, I can tell you, it was thought that that pair of people, whether you call them coaches, would then together bring in more people, that group would not be limited to just 2 people and the president.
Okay. So we have time for a few more and then a break. Okay.
Hi, Kim Watson from Ohio. Just a quick procedural question. If you have input or comments on multiple sections, how can we best communicate that?
Oh, we hadn't thought about that one. Huh. When she said procedural, I thought this was going to be really easy.
Yeah, the question was, what if a delegate has input that he or she wants to share to more than one section? Because in the breakouts, you would have to choose one, but what if you would like to make concrete recommendations to more than one section? And this is entirely Bill's fault, because he designed the process, and he's been caught in a failure.
And thanks a lot for that question.
So I don't know. What should we do?
I would buttonhole. We have a half-hour break coming up.
Yeah.
There's some people who wrote these sections. These are some of the folks who are going to be leading those. Get up and make your point. And choose the one that you feel you have the most input to make on.
The other thing I would say is, if to Jim or to me, if you again take your copy and just write down the change you wish to seek, add or subtract or reword, and give it to one of us, that would be another way to say something about this, about a section that you will not be in the breakout.
Okay, time for a couple more, and then we'll go for a break.
Jeff Williams, Richmond, Virginia. This is an example. Many sections talk about the board selecting leaders, one red, one blue. What's the definition of leaders? Does it extend to delegates? And if so, is there a way we could apply or show interest?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I don't know what the committee was thinking. Actually, I want to hand that to you because I don't know. I mean, in my own mind, it is not limited to choosing from among some specific pool. It would be a much more, people come up and they say, I'd like to be a part of this, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think people should either talk to me directly, send me email, jim@betterangels.org, or something like that to express interest, okay? Our thing was we wanted to make sure that we did have a red and a blue leader on that, okay? And then we also want to have other people involved and, of course, maintaining a red-blue balance. So that was as far as we thought it out, but if you would like to be part of one, please just let me know, okay? And I'll take that. Okay?
Yeah, so this was so we ready for for Kelly and some logistics? Again, I want to remind you of the process for input on any of these sections. Go to that relevant breakout, and then there will be a drafting committee, and then they're going to make some changes, no doubt, and then the document will come back to us, and we'll deliberate. We'll vote up or down this afternoon. And so appreciate everybody's questions of clarification. I'm going to hand this back over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for all the great questions. So actually, I don't see Kelly, but that's okay because we are going to go to a break where I'm sure there are snacks. I see Kelly, and she is coming back, and she might have an announcement before we let you guys have some more coffee. But we are going to come back here before we go to the breakout sessions. So just a reminder, we're going to be on break until 10:45, and then we're going to come back here.
Hi, everyone. I just want to let you know because of the weather, we are going to be relocating the breakout session so that you can stay as close as possible to College Hall. Woohoo! So do not wander up to, don't start going up the hill. Please come back here because basically all of the meeting rooms have changed in order to accommodate that. But if you have friends that are relaxing back in their rooms, maybe let them know so they don't wind up alone on the upper part of the hill. The other thing I want to let you know is that in your folders, in addition to the platform that we've been talking so much about, there's a volunteer interest form. So if you're feeling really excited to go deeper, maybe you're new and you haven't really been deeply involved up until this point, take a look at the volunteer interest form, fill it out, and you can hand it in to Leah, and we will connect with you post-convention. The other thing I want to mention is that we will be sending out a list of names of all the delegates. After the convention, we typically include contact information on this list so that you can get in touch with people that you've met here without having to find all those business cards buried in your suitcase. So, but if you don't want your contact information shared, please let us know so that we can take you off that list. We want to respect your privacy. So let Leah know or let me know, or you can send me an email that you'd like to be omitted from that list. So we'll do that probably about a week after the convention, so you have a few days to let us know, and then we'll be sending that out. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, so be back here 10:45. Thank you.
Okay, we have the new rooms. We will only give them to people that are in the room. People that are not in the room will be given confusing directions to non-existent places.
People not in the room will be walking in the rain to the wrong room.
That is absolutely the truth. Okay, guys, here's one trick I have used. When I count to 3, I would like everyone here to clap and give a huge ovation as if something interesting happened in here. 1, 2, 3. Now, well, no, we are not telling any of the late comers about that. They have missed that.
That was awesome. That was epic.
So it is true, I went down to the department store.
Did you?
I did. I was looking for those camouflage pants. I couldn't find them.
You gotta go to Dick's Sporting Goods.
They're camouflage, Marissa. You can't see them, they're hard to see.
So this guy came to the door. He was asking for a small donation for the local pool. So I gave him a glass of water.
Oh, you guys, please come back so we don't have to do any more jokes. All right, friends, I see Kelly coming back up here. Thank you for coming back, and thank you to Kelly for making it so that we don't have to walk in the rain.
All right, everyone. So are you ready to go make some revisions to our working document? Woohoo! All right, so however, some of you, I remember Donna Murphy when we were discussing the agenda, and she said, you know, some people just aren't policy wonks. They don't care about this stuff. What are they gonna do in the morning? So if you're not one of those people, you don't have to go to these sessions. But if you would like to make specific recommendations for changes to the platform, we highly recommend that you go to the strategy platform deliberation session. So I'm going to announce the other options first. So the red-blue one-to-one conversations, this is just if you would like to speak one-on-one with someone of the opposite color and just spend a longer time talking to someone. We've had a lot of breaks and things, but sometimes you don't have a chance to really connect with someone. So if that sounds appealing to you, we are going to be going to Ursa's stage slide for that. So Bruce France, are you out? Come on over here, Bruce. Thank you. One thing to note about these sessions is that it will be a one-to-one conversation. So if the ratio are slightly off, you may be asked to go next door to one of the debates that's in the same building. So if you do really want to go to that, I would suggest you head out now with Bruce. Bruce, did you get all the paper you need? Okay.
So I want to point out, this is a structured conversation. This is not just a chat.
Thanks, Bill.
Where you get to talk about some of your background and you get to talk about a policy issue that is important to you. Each person gets to talk about a policy issue that's important to you. So it's a structured conversation, and we're rolling it out here, and we want to roll it out around the country, both for face-to-face and for Zoom calls, so that people who do the skills workshop, which is soon going to be online, can pair up with somebody locally or around the country and have a structured one-to-one conversation. So that's what that's about. The one-to-one. It's called the one-to-one, okay? The one-to-one, but it's got to be pairs, so please be kind with Bruce, because if we have a disproportionate number, some of you are going to have to go somewhere else.
If you think Bill is tough as a moderator.
Thank you, Bill. What would we do without you? We need you. Thanks, Bill. I'm glad that we could clarify this. So the two debates going on, I would like, if you, yes, sorry. So the session that you would be directed to if you go to the one-to-one and the ratio is off is the debate, which will be next door in the same building. So Bruce is going to head out now. If Bruce is going to go stand in the lobby, if you want to go to the one-to-one conversations, please head out now. Yes. That's right. Yes, you're going to Ursa's stage side. You're going to not be in the original area because we're trying to keep as many people dry as possible. You might have to go outside, but we're not going to go all the way up the hill. Okay, so next, if you're interested in going on to a debate on gun rights or gun control, you are going to be going to Ursa's fireside. Rob Robertson, are you here? Rob, can you step into the center aisle? Rob Robertson. Rob Robertson. Okay, David Lapp's going to take you. Rob Robertson has abandoned you guys. What are you going to do? David Lapp will save you. Okay, go with David Lapp if you're interested in being saved by the gun rights and gun control debate. It's going to be in Ursa's fireside as scheduled. The second debate is going to be on political correctness. Leah Labresco is going to be the chair of that debate. Is Leah here? Leah has got her gavel and is ready to hit you? No. Okay. She's going to lead you. She is very kind. She would never do so. I know this personally. She's going to take you to the Bear's Den, which is just across the hall, but I would ask you to wait so we can let the other folks out and there's not a stampede. But if you're interested in going to the political correctness debate, why don't you stand up, gather your things. You can stand in the aisle here for a second while people filter out. All right, head on out, debate number 2. Okay, so that leaves those of you that are interested in going to the strategy platform revision sessions, the policy wonks. The preamble and conclusion section, is going to be led by John Wood and Cynthia as well, the moderator. So John Wood, are you here? Yeah, I'm going to wait for people to get out. Folks, if you're heading out, if you could head out. David Lapp, can you move your group out into the lobby, please? Take your group into the lobby. Yeah, they should be able to figure that out, I think. But that's okay. There's a long break, yeah. All right, John Wood, are you here, John? Jim, you're here, so let's do your group next. Okay, so the folks going to the theory of change session. If you're interested in working on the theory of change, why don't you step into the aisle here with Jim? You all are going to Elliott A, lower level seminar. Do you know where that is, Jim? It's not the Elliott B that you're staying in, but the other building. Paul Norris knows where it is. Okay, so if you're headed to theory of change, why don't you follow Jim out towards the lobby. Raise your hand, Jim, so people can see you as you're leaving. Theory of change. Bus is leaving. Thomas Elliott A. Lower level seminar. Hey, Kieran. Kieran and April are going to be leading the media initiative discussion. Can you all step into the aisle here while you're having your breakfast? If you're interested in talking more about the media initiative, you're going to go to the Elliott A. Lounge, which April should know where that is. All right, follow these folks out. The Partnerships Initiative, Tom Smerling and company, Donna and Mel. You're going to the private dining room in South 40, which is just down the hall. You know, Donna knows where it is. If you're interested in talking about partnerships, you need to follow them out now. All right, anyone who's interested still in the preamble and conclusion, John Wood has appeared. So if you're interested in the preamble and conclusion, you're going to be going to South Meeting Room 1, which is literally just out the door on the right. You can take them there, John, now. Excellent. Thank you, John. All right, and that should leave only those of you who are interested in talking about the public policy initiative. Is that correct? Nod your heads yes and come forward so we're not, scattered here across this vast room. That was easy, Greg, right? You didn't that was nice. I like this. Yeah. You can take a seat right here in the front few rows. Sure.
Do we, you want to?
Okay, there's two that work.
Okay.
This one's on.
This one's on, and that one's good too. Okay. All right. So, we are going to do some drilling down on the public policy part of the platform. The plan is that we're going to begin with just a couple of minutes from the author, one of the authors. And by the way, Riley is ill. So Stephen Riley took responsibility since she's ill, and she would have dragged herself here. And Steve said, don't, we'll handle it. and also she won't spread whatever she has to the rest of us. But so they are the team, or the red-blue team, that we're working on this. So Steve is going to just take us through the process for a couple minutes and the changes that this version reflects from before. And then we're going to have just some time for what are your enthusiasms. And then the bulk of the time will be concerns and fixes. In other words, if you have a concern, what would you propose to do to fix it, right? And then we'll discuss those. We are not the final drafting committee. We can recommend stuff if we sort of have a consensus. And there might be some stuff they get together and they say, nah, they're not going to do. So we're not the final version here, but that group will, and two of us from this group will represent us to that group, okay? And before we finish up, we'll say what would we like our representatives to say there. And we don't all have to agree, right? So we'll just get a sense of the group. We'll do our best, okay? So that's the process. And Steve, you want to start us off?
All right, everybody hear me? This is good for the live stream and all that. So of the comments received, we had 117 comments received back on the public policy plank. Again, they were green, yellow, and red lights. I put every single one of them, thanks. David Lapp put every single one of them in a spreadsheet. I sorted that spreadsheet on public policy by light, and we looked at every single one. 92 of them were green. Now, I counted greens.
Green means?
Green means they were happy with they agreed in general with the content. They had no significant issue that would stop them from signing the document at the end. And now a couple of greens use language like, I love the idea, but there's a typo in line 1. So we still counted that as green, and we fixed the typo. There were several yellows that were concerned. It was not clear that this was going to be a pilot, and we thought in our breakout sessions and in today, we'll just emphasize the fact that this is a pilot thing. National is not committing to policy positions. These are local, and we think we have addressed that in language. The other yellow that tended to happen was this dialogue we had during the morning today. It was not clear. We were on modeling behavior of the statement that we think local political leaders in general model Better Angels behaviors and national do not. National wasn't in there, so we put national in. Now, we may have gone too far, and it reads like there is no such national leader that models Better Angels behavior. So that was not the intention, and that's something we can talk about. And then the other two reds were really people who had specific content input, and we're going to, if they're here today, if you've done a red comment to this thing, please get with me after the fact, because we want to incorporate them into ongoing feedback and discussion. So I do not read the red as we are against the policy decision. It is, I am concerned that this might go off the rails, and I would like to contribute to driving it forward. So we'll contact them after the fact to provide input to the group.
Okay, great.
That's the summary.
Okay, great. Any questions about the process up till now? Okay, so first, enthusiasms. So what do you like about this plank of the policy? Yes.
So Mike C. from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Mike C. from Austin, Texas. And our alliance is a participant in the policy program so far. And we're in its very early stages. Really, we're 5 weeks in maybe. And overall, we've had, it's been a good thing. It's been a valuable thing. Particularly at the Alliance, one of our big questions strategically is, what do you do after the Red-Blue workshop? And this appears to be a way that Reds and Blues can still be engaged with one another in productive conversation. And so far, it's been a positive experience, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. So it keeps engagement, and so far, working.
It's actionable.
Actionable.
And that's what a lot of us are looking for. Again, sort of the, follow up with what the gentleman just said. Now what? Now what do we do? So again, in our our alliance has picked a policy that we'd like to move forward. Also, we seem to have done a better job at engaging Reds because, again, it's more action-oriented.
Okay.
Personal experience from being in the meetings, it's uniting. It is very, very uniting. And to be in the meeting and really just observe really more than I participated with any input occasionally. I think Kuyar and I both just kind of chaired it and let these geniuses go to work. And really, it was very, very uniting. It was great. So
say more about how it was uniting for the group.
It was uniting in this way. You know me, Blue comes in, she's a lady, hadn't met her yet, and I had met her, but I hadn't heard her comments or anything yet, and she was one of the that got really involved. There were a few new ones come down to, and I'm like, oh, she's going to say something. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, oh, what's this going to be? So I kind of like, okay, here goes. Oh, wow, did she say that? And then the Reds were like, and everyone in there, that's good, write that down. So, and then, so the last 4 meetings, like, it just got better. The final thoughts were, great meeting, best one yet. And all the way to the last meeting, and we're in there, and probably about half hour over and going on, and we still had some room to go to get things done. And somebody says, well, I think it was Kim says, well, it's getting kind of late. Should we continue or move on? And again, simultaneously, let's go. Let's hammer this out. Let's get it done. And everybody, everything was in an agreement by the end of it. And it was awesome. It was awesome to see. And I think when the country gets this, and maybe others, but when they see this, they're like, let's go. Let's do it.
Great. Okay. Yes.
It's finding commonality. So it helps people find commonality. So there may not be now our alliance is just, we've done like 4 or 5 workshops, but our alliance is
so tell us who you are.
I'm sorry, Jennifer Stepp, Gastonia, North Carolina.
You're involved in politics.
Yes, and I'm a councilwoman there. So we find issues that aren't as polarizing, like we need another bridge from Gastonia to Charlotte. Well, that's not necessarily a hot button issue. So it helps people find things they have in common that we can work for together.
Yeah, that aren't red or blue. Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Chuck Schreffler, St. Paul, Minnesota. What I like about it is it's just a pilot. I have big gut level concerns about getting too far into policy, but I don't object too much to trying it.
Yeah, it's a pilot. Yeah. Yeah, and deliberately designed that way because this is tricky stuff for us. Tricky stuff. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mariah. I'm from Maine, and I appreciate the focus on local approach to policy. I appreciate that that's where the focus is, and it emphasizes that that's where the good things are already kind of happening, and that's where we can continue to kind of do this good work.
Okay. Anything else? Other enthusiasms?
Kuyar Mustashfi from Springboro, Ohio. It is a tool to use it to attract more members to our local alliances and also show the nation that we have modeled the best behavior to accomplish something, and it's a good the best advertisement for Better Angels. So it puts us on the map and it helps us recruit.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've modeled that we can talk to each other, and this is, you're saying, a model that we can actually work on some things together, like in the policy area. Okay, yes.
Rob from Cincinnati, Ohio.
So Ohio delegation has stacked the deck here. Yeah, okay.
By design.
By design, yeah, yes.
I don't think that you can look at this document, whether you are a red or a blue or a purple or the media, and see anything other than the fact that we are trying to overcome the biases and the misperceptions that each side has about the other side. And so I think that essentially that this is a great working document to show people who we are.
Okay. Shows who we are. Okay, anything else that hasn't been said? Anybody wants to get in?
Yeah, Charles Heckscher from Princeton, New Jersey.
Yes, Charles.
I think it ties in very nicely with some of the other initiatives because it will enable us to form partnerships with other groups that are involved with a policy issue that we're dealing with and to reach out to them. It will lead to media exposure as these things develop. I think it will be a great news story to focus in on a group of Reds and Blues working together around this. That should attract a lot of attention. I think and it may well come out of the debates, by the way, that the debates can help to define the issues that people are going to work on. So I think there are a lot of synergies. Which I think
could interface with those. Yeah, the synergy. Yeah, if you have, if you got points of consensus arriving out of debates, they go, oh, maybe we should work on that. Okay. Since we're out of space on the page, there's room for one more that hasn't been said, so make it high quality. Ooh, I raised the bar. Repeat my, we have room for one more. Anything, was this cover enthusiasm? Okay, just wanted to get that out first.
I'll throw one in just at the end, and Rob said it in the meeting, Greg Smith from Ohio, that this will show people that, because a lot of people think we're just kind of some kind of rainbow club or something. We're just a social group. This will surely show people we have initiative. We're not a social club. This is just not tea and crumpets.
Right.
Do we do that? Oh, that's where I came from. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you're going to do that, have clotted cream as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about some concerns, and if you're okay with it, how you would fix it. Because we don't have a lot of time today, right? So if we just donated 20 concerns and no ideas for how to fix it, so I'm gonna have two columns here. This will be concerns, and then how would you address your concern? Okay? You'd like to go? Yeah.
Okay, Rick Olson from Prior Lake, Minnesota. First of all, I've got a question, and I've also got a concern.
Okay.
The question is, what happens with these policy determinations that a group makes?
So the way the platform is written and the way the process works is a local alliance decides to do this as a pilot. They go off and they do work. Something happens. I'll give Austin as an example because I'm most familiar with that. We are starting a pilot with better civics education in high school students. We have an initial measure of success, which is 2 new groups basically adopt something. That's our pilot. When we finish that pilot, the intent is for the pilot policy group to come back to the alliance, update them on success, and then there is a decision for the alliance to take that forward as an official alliance of Minnesota or Austin or Central Texas or whatever. To do that, 75% of the effective membership needs to agree. And then it becomes, quote, an official local alliance policy.
So we're not getting at your question, I don't. Yeah.
Then what?
The what?
Then what?
Then what? Then more work. So more work occurs at the appropriate in the appropriate sphere. So in Austin, what would happen is we would go beyond our pilot test groups to target all municipal leagues in Texas. There's 1,200 of them that don't have youth advisory commissions. That's our tactic. So we have 1,000 organizations that we would then craft some kind of communication to further the policy. But it would be a method. So what happens next depends on what is the initiative at the local level.
Now my concern. First of all, depending on how far you take that and how it's framed, you could have endangering the Better Angels 501c3 status. Okay. Second question, what I'm really concerned about is Better Angels is, although it may be balanced, red, blue in these discussions, I don't believe that it adequately represents the full spectrum of the full political spectrum. any policy position taken by a Better Angels Alliance, which is then communicated to the general public, will automatically alienate a whole bunch of Reds. And if we want to engage more Reds, this is not the way to do it. I would prefer that we stay in the realm of process, how we can communicate better with each other. An alternative way to doing this is run national issues forum style forums like we've been done in Egan Alliance on immigration and climate change, and which is entirely discussion and looking for common ground, but not developing any policy position.
Okay, so you had two concerns, the 501c3, and the fix for that would be, presumably, be really careful about that. Well, okay, don't say anything public, yeah, and so, okay. So basically, you're saying this is not a good idea, this public policy platform. Yeah, so your fix is, no, he said it, his fix is, don't do this. Right, right, okay. There won't be motions this afternoon, by the way. No, there will not be motions on like, to delete the thing. It just, and you could vote against the whole thing if you want, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's your choice. I mean, this is democracy, and people are going to have to look at all of the sections. But there won't be a debate this afternoon after all of this on deleting whole sections. I just don't think that's likely to happen. Now, if there was a consensus of this group that we should just delete this whole thing, well, then that would go to the drafting committee. And I hear you, yeah, and you're very concerned that's what could happen next, right? That we get identified, even at the local level, with specific political issues, and this will be an alienating process. Okay, so, and I know you've thought a lot about this. Do you want to just comment?
We share your concern, but we have found that in our membership, we were quite concerned that there would be an immediate loss of Reds, right? That has not happened. And I don't know, has that been your experience or not? No. Reds were more approved than all right. All right. So again, it very much depends at the local level, right? So what we have found is as people's initial reaction to this is a great deal of concern. As they understand it as a policy process, as the balance of Better Angels and all of that, we see that concern, at least in the pilot so far, of going substantially down. The local chapters who are doing policy group work are, in the way the plank is written, keep in touch with us at a national level. We are not controlling them, but we are understanding what they are doing. If someone is about to go way off the reservation, and we know about that, it is Riley and my job to notify the leadership team so that we can take corrective action. I just don't think that's going to happen, but it could, and the mechanism for that is acknowledge, we would be in touch with this stuff and we would raise it at the leadership team. Right, let me finish your question, right? So 2 points to the concern. One is, I think with more familiarity to the plank and the policies, we have found those concerns to dramatically lessen. We have not seen evidence yet that it drives Reds away, but we are very concerned about that. If someone is about to go off the reservation, we think the visibility loop through the local leaders, myself and Riley, to the leadership team, give us a mechanism to address that. And one thing that is not in the policy, but will be part of the alliance discussion, is to ensure that we do no lobbying as part of this 501(c)(3) status. That is a well-defined kind of thing. We owe a policy to that, but we did not put it in here because it'll be an adjunct to the plank.
One more comment, then we'll move on. Go for it, yeah.
I don't really have the concern among the people that we have here or in the alliances, because, we're not really deep red. I'll be honest with you. Most of us, anyway, are not deep red. We can find things we agree on. So I'm not really concerned within our alliance, because we have actually done policy discussions within our alliance, and they've gone well. So I'm not concerned about within us. I'm just wondering if we want to reach that 1%, we can't do this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. David?
So the Ohio Alliance people that are here, I mean, I could just give the mic to Ray. Ray is a deep red. Bill is a deep red. Greg is a deep red. They would not be here if we were not discussing this.
Okay. So you got your point out, and it's this is why this has been delicate since the beginning of Better Angels. It's exactly your concern. And what you added to this, I just want to highlight, is if we get to the million and we've got 200 alliances, there's more risks, right? I mean, that's a new understanding. This is a pilot for this year, but I just want to highlight that.
2019 to 2020.
Yeah, but I just want to highlight your last point, that you're not.
And I think this is an excellent.
Yeah, you're not dissing the experience of alliances so far, but you're raising that concern. That what's the unintended consequence later? So, yes.
What is the threat to the? What is the threat specifically to our 501(c)(3) with any public policy issues?
If my understanding is, if we were to lobby for specific legislation, you have to be a 501(c)(6). You have to have a different stand.
And it's not just, it's not that you can't go talk to Congress people or something like that. It's got to be a piece of legislation in active consideration of the legislature, and you're trying to go influence their vote. We want you to vote for that. Yeah. Right?
And Joanne,
it's complicated. It's complicated.
Joanne Loring, who was on our board, is actually an expert on nonprofits, and so she will advise us. I'm quite confident. I can't guarantee that this stuff won't happen, but I can guarantee this is not going to happen. We have a board member who's a specialist in this area. Yeah. So concerns.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Kim from Ohio. My concern is this, the sentence that talks about separating national from local. National is not going to endorse or take policy positions. But how does the external audience, when we, have our policy initiative, whatever it is, and they hear it's Better Angels, right? We're saying Better Angels, Better Angels. Better Angels is Better Angels. How do they distinguish between Better Angels at the local level versus Better Angels at a national level? I do think that, there will be this assumption that whether or not we say, this is not endorsed, this is just our local initiative, it's not endorsed by the national level. Again, the audience, when they pick up something else and read about Better Angels, it's all going to be perceived as the same. So I'm really concerned, how do we, make that separation?
How would you fix it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, right. So, okay. Yeah.
So the way the policy plank is written is that all communication about this kind of work is from the listed local alliance. So the thing we're doing in Austin is an initiative of Better Angels of Central Texas. Now that still has Better Angels in the name. There is a concern with that, but the point here is that we are trying to introduce pluralism and action into the equation. And the unit of action is the local alliance. So all communication, all framing, all positioning is, this is an initiative of Better Angels of Central Texas or Better Angels of Sacramento or whatever. People are people, they can extinguish, but in far as the platform is concerned, we feel at the pilot stage, enforcing this local branding is sufficient for the pilot stage. That's in terms of the.
And then to see if this becomes a problem.
Well, if it becomes a problem, again, the assumption is that at an alliance level, on a review with myself and Riley, we would become aware of some negative press, or somebody is making noises, or there's some complaints or whatever. We would work with the local alliance. We'd inform the leadership team, and we would begin a policy of addressment, if you will, kind of like the Washington Post article or something like that. So that concern is contemplated. The mechanism in the policy is local branding, and the monitoring of that is on this shared best practice at the National Alliance level with alerts to the leadership team and then redressment once something happens, right?
Okay.
For the fix for that you were just discussing, I don't think you should use Better Angels of Central Texas. It should be Central Texas Better Angels so that people understand right away. Because sometimes people don't read everything. They'll just see Better Angels right off the bat. And I think if you put the locality first and then Better Angels, you will avoid that conflict a lot more. It'd be more likely that you would avoid that. It's just my suggestion for a fix.
So let me say the generic fix is the careful branding, and careful branding, and that may be some may not want to change the name, but that's an example of so it's careful branding and monitoring. Okay, so somebody else have a criticism?
I've been involved in Rotary for about 20 years, and I kind of look at this as what they do. They have 6 pillars or areas of focus.
Yeah.
But it's all Rotary at the top. But the clubs can do their own things within those 6 areas of focus.
Yeah.
So it is, we're all related, but we do our own thing.
Yeah.
And headquarters is kind of looking at the 6 areas of focus. Does it fit into that? Okay, fine, and we can fund within those areas of focus. But the club is very autonomous as to how they want to do it.
Yeah.
And we're called, in the case of Wilmington, I don't know if I introduced myself. Alan from Wilmington, North Carolina. The way it's framed is it's how do we say it? The Rotary Club of Wilmington.
Yeah.
It's different than what you're talking about of saying the Wilmington Rotary Club. We're actually officially called the Rotary Club of Wilmington, but it's all locally branded. Yeah.
So Ray.
First, a comment. I think you need to look into getting a 501c4 also. Isn't that the right number? From my Tea Party experience, you got to have both those hats, and then you got to know how to use them. So that's something to look into.
Okay, so I'll put that up here.
When this
tell us what that is exactly. The 501c3 4.
That lets you lobby.
Yeah. So that right. That's what that is.
Mechanically, and like I say, I'm not a lawyer. You have to keep the money separate. Sometimes right now all the money you raise is for C3.
Right.
If some lobbying efforts were to go on, that money would have to be separate.
So if we move into that area, that's
and then
the way you do
when
it.
you get challenged, you take off your C3 hat and you put on your C4.
Yeah.
My real concern is the friction between national and local alliances, because it will happen. And everybody has to understand that and not get all whacked out of shape about it, because it will happen, especially even during this pilot. And I think that the way the platform is written now is probably the way to do it, certainly during a pilot. The national organization has got to have the means to say, oh, those crazy people in Ohio, or, that's a local thing they're trying out. We check in to see how it's going, but it's not endorsed by the larger body. I think that we have to tell people that that's the way it's going to be handled, so the people in Ohio, when we get our hand slapped, we don't get all lathered up.
So clarity about the national oversight, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And like I say, depending on how the pilot goes, that will evolve.
Yes. Yes.
But I think the people in the local levels there's 3 of them already moving out on stuff.
Yeah.
That they need to understand, okay, look, this could get rocky.
Yeah, you're saying this is almost certain.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, it's certain. And I've been involved in enough organizations with national and state and so on. It always happens.
Yeah.
And you're saying the platform now for this pilot is fine, but this needs to be on the radar screen because this is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Right, right. And you're saying it could happen most immediately with the groups are already going, right? Because the national could say, well, that wasn't.
Sure, because in Ohio, with the initiative that we did, I voted no before I voted yes, because I was worried about all the top things.
Yeah.
But a lot of time was spent on it and thrashed through.
Yeah.
And I made the comment, I think, in a couple of the meetings, I said, I think that in Ohio we're wasting our time because my sense was that National was going to tell us to knock it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad I came to the convention because that's not the case at all. They're not going to say knock it off. You can't even try this. But my point would be, depending on how it goes and what happens, they may say knock it off or turn a little bit more to the left or right or whatever it is.
And be prepared for that. Okay, got it. Clarification? Yeah, so go for it.
Clarification, when you say national, can you pinpoint what's national? Are we talking politicians, or are we talking about?
Oh, national, I think, Better Angels leadership.
Okay.
Right,
So,
I think that's what you meant, right?
Okay, so then I'm going to have a concern, but I think somebody else wanted to say something, unless you want me to go on for a concern.
Go for it.
I have a concern. When we first started, we had some local officials, our district representatives and senator, and some others that were like, wow, this is cool. I like what you guys are doing and all that. I have a concern that when this word gets to politicians, local and national, I have a concern they're going to gun for us. They're not really going to like this. Yeah. So they're going to gun for us, and I have a fix for that.
Okay.
I think you got to try to fly under the radar as much as possible until you get some numbers. So we're going to have numbers. I wonder, and I don't know anything about the 501(c)(3) and the 4 and all that, but I wonder how, and being able to discuss, but petitioning people, red and blue, in the public places, the malls and that, just petitions. Do you like this? Just for a consensus of what kind of support we're going to get from the civilians, the people. That's my fix. We need
so there were two. I heard you say keep a low profile.
Yeah.
Until we have numbers.
Until we get some numbers.
And then do some polling.
Do some polling.
And see what people think of what we're doing. Okay. Great, thank you.
Can I just ask one point of clarification to Ray's point, Bill?
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
So Ray, when you were talking about we need to make sure the local alliances or the local people within Better Angels understand, and I think the platform addresses this in terms of, they're not necessarily going to be in agreement and things like that. But was your point as well that we need to prepare our 7,000 members that, this is going on and there could be disagreement amongst the thing so that they're forewarned that this was contemplated and it's okay and all of that? I mean, that was part of your point. Okay.
Yeah.
Rob again from Ohio. And I guess if we were to come up with a policy position, and as a national organization, we develop something, and I were to bring it back to many of the blues that I know, they would react exactly the same way as Rick is suggesting some of the Reds would react. They would say, we can't trust those people. You know what, I don't want anything to do with that because I just don't believe that they have my interest or the country's interests at heart. And they would be portraying the symptom that brought all of us into this group. It's a lack of trust. We can't trust the other side. So whose obligation is it to let them know that what you're seeing on the media is not the reality, at least not our reality? It's my obligation to speak to those blues and to let someone that they know is a deep blue and someone who is not willing to compromise my values, and let them know that it is okay, that we are all looking to make this country better. So that's why I don't have the same concerns, for example, that Rick has. And I'm hoping that we can find a way to move beyond that.
So you did raise a concern about deep mistrust on both sides, right? Outside of Better Angels, undermining this, and then your fix is we take responsibility to talk to our own side, right? I think that's what you said, right? Yes. Okay. Okay. Why don't you do that while I write that down?
Chuck from St. Paul, Minnesota. I have two concerns. The first one, not so much for the pilot, but my concern is that we self-identify when we come into this. And if someone really wanting to kind of redirect this as a policy group, it's not going to take them long to figure out that they can send a bunch of reds to identify as blues and tip the scale in alliances, and there's really no way to control for that. The other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's facial recognition, right? The other concern I have, this.
Oh, so let's. That was a big enough one to start with. Yeah. This would be. Let me just finish this. I'm going to say advocate within our own sides. This one is about sabotage.
Right.
Right. This would be deliberate sabotage. We're going to tilt the scales on this. Game the system. And in terms of the pilot now, because that's what we're proving now, what's your response, Steve?
Well, thank you, Bill. Okay. The fundamental contemplation of the pilot is that we're all going to be better angels on this. Yeah. Right? I mean, we really didn't discuss it. I know it's an element of human nature, but I mean, it's assumed that this is for better angels, by better angels, and they're going to act like better angels. And again, I think this is the second time that scale has come up, right? I mean, if we're into a year from now and there's 200 alliances and we have 100,000 members and it's not the same experience for members and things like that, absolutely discussion of safeguards like that, because it's not just going to be public policy. Right now, 75% of reds and 75% of blues can make an alliance, stand on its head. So I get your point, I think, but the contemplation of the current pilot for this year is for better angels, by better angels, acting like better angels.
Yeah. And I had one other comment I wanted to make about that national, what our national politicians are incapable of doing, or something like that. I misheard that the first time. What I heard was basically the local politicians do a better job of this than the national politicians. That's really not what it says, but it is what I heard. And I'm wondering if that whole phrase about what our politicians on a national level are incapable of doing, whether that could just be deleted and the sentence just reads something like, we want to model this without taking the jibe at national politicians.
Okay. So would it help to read this statement again?
Yeah.
Because I went back and reread it after the comment. Is that okay, Bill? Yeah, sure. All right. So the statement as stated in the platform now, the desired outcome is to demonstrate that Better Angels members working together at the local level can do what our elected officials at the national level seem largely incapable of, working together across party and philosophical lines to offer constructive proposals. So that doesn't say there's no one at the national level, it's largely incapable, right? And your suggestion would be what?
I think that's an unnecessary flash, and I would just, the desired outcome is to demonstrate that Better Angels members working together at the local level can demonstrate, cross philosophical lines, can offer constructive proposals.
All right, so you just strike the, so, all right, so an alternative formula. So try this formulation, right? Which would be the desired outcome is to demonstrate that Better Angels members at the local level can work together across party and philosophical lines to offer constructive proposals.
Yes.
All right, now can everybody remember what I just said? Okay. All right.
Sense in the group that came up before, there's no reason to.
So I can remember that.
Yeah. So rephrase and delete it. Yeah.
Rephrase or
strike it. Yeah. That came up enough before that. Yeah, strike it.
Maybe a couple of fixes.
Yeah.
to consider for the sabotage
Yeah.
is a little bit of a vetting process. Maybe to be a part of an alliance, you have to first go to a skills workshop or all-day workshop.
And that's true now.
Or something. You do have to do that now. Okay.
Right.
So hopefully you'll be able maybe to pick up on that, or if they're going to spend the time
Yeah.
to come to that. The other thing is maybe to work on, like I spoke of before, issues that aren't necessarily red or blue. So then you don't have people that really want to sabotage to play party politics. So if we're working on local issues that maybe aren't those hot button issues, those huge federal policy issues, I think people would be less
They would be
wanting to
they
come
would
and,
be
and
bored.
try to take over, right?
Right. Yeah. And some of these are, if we're successful, we're going to run into these problems. We might, as opposed to if we're not, because then we're a target. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who has not gotten in with a concern? So why don't you go? Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah, go for it.
So I have a concern, and this is coming from a pretty strong advocate of this piece of the platform, that this policy issue has to remain secondary to Better Angels. Any policy issue has to remain secondary to Better Angels. The primary mission is depolarization. And so my concern is that if a particular policy issue gets really rolling, suddenly Better Angels is going to be about that policy position. And we as an organization have to be very, very cautious to make sure that that does not happen. Our mission is depolarization, and it has to remain that way.
So that we become identified with that. I mean, we've agreed, and enough local groups are doing it. To just pick one, and that's the worry, that we would become identified, and that our workshops are one-to-one. All that goes away. So what's your proposed fix for that?
It needs to say secondary, and I think, I mean, it's someone at National has to keep an eye on it, and I suspect primarily it's going to be our media group folks. It's going to be, the media could potentially see this as, oh, these Better Angels people are a thorn in our side. Let's make them about X.
Yeah.
And that could disrupt the organization.
So I'm putting up monitor.
Monitor, I think.
Monitor, yeah. Because it could get out of hand very easily. For not saying. Did you want to add something to that, Charles? You want to add something?
The other part of the fix, I think.
Give us your name.
Charles Heckscher at Princeton, New Jersey. Is pluralization, I think, is another part of the fix. In other words, there are a lot of these things going with different issues, and ideally, often taking different positions on the same issues, so that we would not really.
Well, that in other words, that's one of the things that may happen, is that different alliances may take different positions.
It's likely to
that
happen.
there will be plurality, and particularly when we're saying that we're not anticipating that National puts a stamp on something, and different areas might. So monitor and there's pluralism here, so it makes it less likely, but the monitoring is still important, because the media can just define you for yourself. Right? I mean, just a bang, and we'd have to really be careful about it. So I think Ray was next.
I was going to add another fix to this, which is that alliances need to continue doing Better Angels workshops and debates and so forth, so that they are always attracting new people via the workshops, the debates.
Yeah. So to continue to do all those other things. Yeah. Right. And that you can be an active member of Better Angels and not want to do anything in public policy, and there's lots of stuff to do. Lots of stuff to do.
And that's point number one in the policy.
And that's part where,
Right. So in the plank itself, it says it's optional.
Yes, and policy can become really sexy, because it gets a lot of attention. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself here, and so you're raising that. And then the prestigious people in the organization are the policy people, and the others are doing these little dialogue. That would be a distortion that we'd really have to make sure we don't get into. If it's sexy, you volunteer to do it, Greg. Yeah. Yeah, a calendar. A calendar.
Rick Olson, one word fix. In the second paragraph where it says each local alliance policy group participating initiative will choose and develop its own, I would like to suggest we change the word will to may to make it from being directive to permissive.
So will goes to, that's what he's saying. Will goes to may. So in other words, it would read, your proposed language would read, each local alliance policy group participating in the initiative. Well, if it's participating in the initiative, it will choose because they has chosen.
Well, you could just say chooses and develops. The will sounds. The will sounds like a command.
It does.
And he read it that way. If you say that chooses, they just choose. If they're participating, they choose.
So each local alliance policy group participating in the initiative chooses and develops its own proposal.
That would be fine.
That takes out, the will sounds a little commanding. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a little commanding. Yeah. Okay, back to Ray.
And this is maybe a little redundant, but I think we have to, this whole thing about legal protection and down the road, it's kind of the chicken and the egg. And when I think about Tea Party, the eggs came first, and then some people tried to become the chicken. No, I think it's intuitively obvious. If in my terrible example, the chicken is who's in charge. The national is the chicken, and the eggs are the alliances. When the Tea Party formed, the eggs came first, and then people tried to become the chicken. In this, the chicken came first, and now there are some eggs. And so we have to understand that, and when you're having the discussions about legal and all those things, you know, we're collecting money as the Ohio Alliance. We're taking in money. You know, when that went on in the Tea Party, a lot of local groups had their own 3s and 4s until the IRS shut us off. But how they officially sign in that they are a part of your C3 or whatever you have, and in what form and all of that. But understanding, it's glaring to, having lived the life in the Tea Party, we were sabotaged, we were all that happened to us. So I think we have to understand the dynamics of how the thing even was formed.
Yeah.
So I'll just put the C3, C4, and chicken and egg dynamics. There will be a representative who could describe that. I'll just say chicken and egg, and the drafting committee will like that, I'm sure. But it was hard for me to think of chickens being authority figures. That's why I was struggling. But I get your meaning. Okay, who else? Particularly anybody who's not gotten in on the concerns or wants to add anything to any of these others. Yeah, Kim, yeah. Some of them are, anything new there, or you want to add to? Yeah.
So I have an additional concern.
Okay.
And maybe it's just a point of clarification for number 4. Because our group really, really struggled with this. And I'd like to avoid the same sort of struggle with other alliances who want to pick something. And it was mentioned earlier before we did our breakouts, you know, what do we mean by 75% of reds and 75% of blues? Because that denominator constantly changes.
Yeah.
Who shows up at the meeting constantly changes. And it was a flippin' year for us to get, you know, because then new people come and you have to reiterate what the whole thing's about and on and on and on. So do we mean dues paying members? When we say members, are we saying dues paying members?
Yes, that's
or
what member
someone who
means.
just has come to an alliance meeting more than once?
So members means dues paying. And I think
To be a member of an alliance, my understanding is you have to be a dues-paying member. You have to have been to a workshop, and you have to be a dues-paying member.
I would suggest that we have people who come
I can
who are
understand
not
it being
dues-paying.
honored in the breach, but I mean, my understanding, at least my understanding of the even website says that. So perhaps we have an enforcement challenge. right?
Okay.
But are you
Hit-
suggesting changing the language
It-
to dues-paying members?
Add dues-paying members.
Yeah, so the concern is who's clarity of who's in the alliance, a lack of clarity. We're finding that, right? And then the fix is, say, dues paying. Okay. Yeah.
So it gives us some authority to the alliance to say, you don't get the vote.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean,
If somebody won't pay their dues.
when people come, they don't come, just constant.
No, I get it, I get it, yeah. Right. Well, we're trying to do a charter for the Alliance in Central Texas, so we're into so it's a quorum and all that kind of stuff, right? So,
Oh, that's these, and so I think we're going to trust alliances to figure that out because it is tricky. It's a pilot, and I know you guys have. I think you and I talked about that it's. And in fact, the concern got raised earlier, which is a valid one, that if you have 4 people show up out of 25 on a side, and 3 of them are for something, so the spirit of this is why we're doing a pilot, right? Because you can get paralyzed if you don't have enough people show up at meetings when you really believe that most of you folks are behind something, but you have a snowstorm in Minnesota and then you're paralyzed. So this is why we're doing a pilot. Yeah. Okay. So we can fill a whole other page. So just because we're towards the end, it doesn't mean we have no other concerns. But is there anything else that isn't already reflected there? Yeah.
Is there language in Kuyar Mustashvi from Ohio? Is there language in the public policy section which will say that if things got off the rail, we could shut this down? And is it necessary to have that language? Well, I mean, the distinction of pilot means that once pilot ends, there is an expiration date associated with any pilot program. Do we need to clarify what happens at the end of the pilot program?
So the pilot program overall, or an individual alliance's pilot?
Overall, because that's
so
what
that
we're
is
dealing with
contemplated.
here.
So that is contemplated in
Yeah.
the platform, and it basically says the pilot project will be coordinated by 2 Better Angels leaders, 1 red, 1 blue, selected by the Better. So me and Riley, or our successors. A report on the pilot project, including measurement of success and recommendations for next steps, will be submitted to the 2020 Better Angels Convention. The sense of that is this is a pilot program of participating local alliances who to participate will keep Riley and I in the loop. We will monitor them on behalf of the leadership team to keep them on the reservation, but not do bureaucratic control. And at the end of that, in preparation for next year's convention, we will say, here are the pilots, here's what happened. We are recommending that we expand this, shoot it in the head, or alter it and try it again. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's the clarification.
Allen, North Carolina. You folks are doing a charter in Austin. Does the charter roll up to the policy portion, or how's that going to work?
Charter?
So it's an alliance thing. So that is an alliance organizational thing, independent of the public policy. So alliances run as independent subunits of Better Angels right now, right? So Riley and I, from a national level, will address, here's how some alliances are organizing, and we were happy to share our charter with people and things like that. But there's no national policy on, does an alliance need a charter, or what must it contain or not contain?
Yeah.
Right now, alliances are growing as 1,000 flowers bloom, right? Our local determination from Central Texas was we had to have a charter to keep growing. We're at about 65 active members, and we can't get bigger if we don't have some kind of organizational document. But that is independent from the public policy plank in the platform we're talking about today.
So just a point of clarification, when we talk about the pilot project will be coordinated by the 2 leaders and then reported out report it out at the next convention, including measurements of success and recommendations, are we saying that leadership then is going to decide whether or not this pilot can go on to the next step, and the local alliance is not involved in that decision making?
So the lifespan of this document is until the next convention, right? There is nothing in this document that contemplates national, doing anything like that, right? So I would envision, what this says is we're going to try this for a year. Some pilots will make progress, some pilots won't. The people doing the pilots are going to keep me and Riley in the loop. Probably quarterly, we'll prepare something we can share with everybody, the leadership team, that kind of stuff. When we get to the next convention, then this decision-making body, much like we're doing this, will review the information, we'll have another readout policy session, et cetera, and then we may or may not decide to do something. So the thing you're talking about, suppose it hasn't been that successful and we decide as a group to stop the public policy program. It would be an assumption, or we'd have to have language in there that would say, we assume every local alliance will therefore cease their public policy. But the local alliances would have input via the convention process to get that done. So the net of your statement, there is no intention from national to cut anybody out. There is no, at least from my perspective, there's no intention of bureaucratic control on this thing. Riley and I are there to share best practices and what doesn't work, and somebody tried this and it blew up on them, don't do it, all that kind of stuff. And what, for the value of that information, we expect the pilot program alliances to share back to us what's working and not working for them, right? And then we'll try it.
So this is the chicken egg thing. Yeah, understandable concern.
Just one word change, maybe that might allay that concern, is if we said recommendations for next steps, if any, will be submitted. So that would make it clear that stopping it is clearly an option, rather not just assuming that. When you say next steps, the doing nothing is obviously an option, but if we made it clear that, if any, would make it clear that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, although my reading of the language would be, if you said that next steps, if any, if you don't have next steps, then things would continue on as they were.
If we just say any next steps.
Any next steps.
Any next
there
steps.
You go. And any next steps.
Well, I think any, if any is.
I mean, I don't have if any. I mean, yeah.
Shoot. Let's put it in and let the drafting committee decide.
Right.
So we don't have to drill down, but they can take a look at it, and if it makes sense to them, they'll put it in. Yeah, and then these are our recommendations to the drafting committee. And they have to read my. No, what's going to happen is that two of you are going to have to read my writing. Now, so there's an old trick here, by the way, with bad writing. If I do a report out, I just decide what's on there, because nobody else can read it. No, that's a little trick. So we need a couple of, we need a red and a blue to represent us on the drafting committee. Can I draft you as a blue? And anybody want to, you're sitting in front of me and spoke up a lot as a blue. Anybody want to nominate a red here? Do you want to, Rob, would you?
I'd nominate Bill.
Bill? Yeah. So how about a yeah, all in favor of two from Ohio, raise your hands. Would you do it? Great, okay, good, thank you. Yeah, man. Yeah. The other qualification is to be able to read the writing, yeah. So could you two come up here? and yeah, and sort of. Oh, and our country, and we are underrepresented in this country.
That's a problem?
That's a problem. Yeah, we wanted articulate members of the group
We need a.
who could represent the group and not themselves, Bill. That was part of the idea. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so based on what so you guys have been part of this. I'm not asking you. So the idea is that you would summarize, and maybe you could write these things out rather than just have it up here, of what the enthusiasms were. Okay, those are on this page. There was a lot of enthusiasm. And then sort of actionable changes that, that you might make. Now, some of these, like the one that Ray talked about, I'm not sure you meant it to be in this document, but these are things to be thinking about in the future. Right. So we don't want to lose those. Are we taking some of those down? So there were some things, like concerns about hijacking and other kinds of things. I wasn't hearing like that has to go into this document. But we have a group of people who care about these issues, and we've been deliberating on this, so we don't want to lose anything. But your job would be to focus on clarifications, changes, issues. So think about it with us now, what you might say in representing us. You're a representative.
Right. Well, not really a living, but not near a living wage. All right.
What do you think you guys would be saying?
Well, I mean, I do think we have to point out, some of the things to keep on the radar versus, what we want actual changes.
Right.
Obviously, the issues with the 501(3), 501(4), whatever, I'll leave that up to the legal folks to, just if they hadn't already thought about it, be aware of it. The potential, if we adopt a position that we may alienate, one side or the other. Again, it's something to be aware of. Let's see, what else? The potential for sabotage. When we get big enough, we probably then need to have more, pillars, such as the Rotary have, or more guardrails around, the process. What else?
This one too,
Like
even though I'm a politician, no, I'm a stateswoman. Will gun for us.
Oh.
I think that's something that we need to keep on the radar
Just-
too. That
right.
they don't try to hijack the group.
Right. And then, I don't know if there's anything else. Let's see. And then let's talk about the actual fixes. I mean, you have a few things you've documented, right?
Yeah, so.
Editorial
Can I
things.
speak? So for you guys, right, to help, right, so I have 4 specific language changes, right? And I can read my writing, and I won't subject you guys to that, right? But the one is to strike the elected official thing out, right? The other is to strike the will out and then go to chooses and develops, right? The other is dues-paying members that you brought up, and then the final one is the if anything at the end, right? And I think that's the 4 specific language changes.
Language changes,
Is that what you
right.
got? Does everybody remember that?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So I can represent that or give you the information. No, they would. Okay. So can.
Yes, I can
Well, so
read it.
we'll
I
go-
can read it, but I've written it down as well.
But the way that, let me just take that for a second. The process, the way this is going to work, Steve and the others who are drafters are going to be in the outside circle. They're not, you can call on him if you forgot something, but the actual deliberation and the drafting committee is other delegates.
So we'll make sure that I get that.
Yes.
I mean, I think most of this then are concerns we have and the fixes that we could actually incorporate into the document we've done. These are other things that we're, perhaps somewhat fearful of.
Concerned about, yes.
And we want to communicate that.
But they don't necessarily need to be
But,
written in.
right, I don't know that there's any other drafting of the document that we need to do based on this information. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically,
Will there be my suggestion would be that there would also, we put the concerns within the context of the enthusiasms. Okay, good.
Yeah, we'll start with the enthusiasm. Yeah, start with the enthusiasm.
Yeah, so the enthusiasms are, the alliances that have already started have found this to be engaging, exciting, uniting, finding commonality.
Yeah, no.
I thought you were starting to write some sort of shorthand up here.
Valuable.
The fact that it's a pilot is
A pilot
Right,
is
right. It's a pilot,
and
and
that
you know,
it's
right.
local.
Exactly. And honestly, I have to say one thing. I think our alliance needs to go back and rethink a few things based on the fact that it's a pilot. And so, when you have a pilot, you have to have a time frame, an objection. How are you going to measure then were you successful or not, et cetera, et cetera. And we need to go back and do some work on that. And collect the data, et cetera.
Yeah, and especially this actionable part, I do think that, I'm not saying it's not important for Blues, but I do think that Reds really they don't want to sit and talk. What can we do? What can we do? Let's get things done right.
Exactly.
And that's what, right, you hit the nail on the head. The media exposure.
What I'm trying to
ties in with other initiatives on the whole document. It ties in with the media exposure and the debates, because the local public policy could be to work with the media or to have debates, and that's synergy written right there.
Wow, yeah.
See, I told you, I was the first grader. Oh.
What?
So Charles has made the point that this was that the debates could surface policy issues.
Right.
Right, that's what you're saying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's right here. Synergy.
No, that's what that word is.
Who's got the marker? You have the marker, Bill?
The marker, yeah, there you go.
Circle synergy.
Well, it's the opioid thing. I snuck it in there. All work on opioids.
But I think the consensus is that, at least for the folks in this room, we feel like we're doing something, and we're doing it together for the betterment of the nation. So.
Right, and when you can find things like you can work on together, it makes it a lot harder to start putting those people you've worked on together in that box. And with those
Makes it a lot harder to hate each other when you've been working side by side.
Can I just say, I'm doing a police and black men project in Minneapolis. Okay, it's not a Better Angels one, but it's police and black men coming together to work on how to make the community safer, as opposed to just getting to know each other.
Right.
And when you're working on something together, you just deal with your differences because you have a common goal.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
As opposed to I just want to feel you,
right.
feel your pain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's up to you guys. We can just.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We're two women. We'll figure,
We'll figure
it
it
out. It's not that hard.
They'll probably talk over each other, Right.
I'm kind of thinking otherwise, but.
So great.
Okay.
So let's just do a little checkout. A little checkout question. Yeah, I'll take that. So we've finished our work here a little bit early. And we have to find out where you guys go for this. We'll find that out. So I think they may have changed the room. I'm not sure. Is it the same room? Okay. Well, we'll do that. But let's finish up. Did you have a? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. The thought just occurred to me. I'm wondering, I understand Rick's concern about presenting the national organization having an issue. I'm wondering if there is a qualitative difference in simply saying, rather than taking the national and saying, this is what we stand for, saying that 75% of our alliances agree that we should be moving in this direction. I wonder if that's a slightly different approach.
Yeah, I think it is a slightly different approach. I don't think we can do that here now because the delegates, the whole thing about a convention is the delegates endorse this, and they represent the organization. So I hear you, and maybe some other year, but for now, I don't think we could do that change. David Blankenhorn would have blow a gasket because the big thing is these are the delegates. We're going to vote up or down here. Okay. So let's just do a quick checkout, a sentence of how you feel about the work we've done in our session. So imagine we're in a Red Blue workshop. I'm going to start with you, Kuyar. And so a sentence or two about how you feel about the work we've done here in this session, in this conversation.
My reservation coming into this working group was I was afraid of both sides not being able to come up with agreement as to how to move forward because all the reservations are very valid and they make sense. And I have a feeling that we were able to come up with a solution and have a way forward in a positive way. So I'm hopeful.
Okay.
Great process. I think even the minor revisions to the platform document are big pluses.
It was extremely helpful to hear other people's concerns and input and their reactions to things that I didn't think were even an issue, and so that was very valuable.
Okay, so let's go here and back, and then we'll go over.
Well, in the legislature, when you vote and lose on an individual appropriations bill, then you need to vote no on the omnibus bill, so I'll be voting no.
I appreciate the process, and it makes me feel like a little bit like a member of Congress.
I thought this went very well. I think the process worked well. I was a little concerned at first that we were never going to get to anything actionable, that it was all going to be kind of these floating concerns, but we did, and I think there were improvements.
Echo what most everyone's saying, that I think it went very well. It was good to hear other perspectives, a couple that I hadn't thought of. Even though I've experienced the sabotage, I hadn't even thought of that. But I think overall we came to a good consensus.
Very similar to the way this whole thing even got started, nearly a year ago. Slow getting traction, but it's starting to pick up steam already, and I think it went well. I think it resembles how this got started. So this is like second gate, second hurdle.
I'm going to piggyback on what David said. For me, it's not a member of Congress. For me, it gives me a feel of what it must have been like to be a founding father at the Constitutional Convention who faced very difficult issues and had to find a way to come together. And so it makes me feel good to feel like I can almost be a part of that.
I see this as progressing along very well with Better Angels. This is our second convention, and the first convention we were at, just writing this document was a nightmare. This time we're polishing it, and I think in a couple more conventions we won't be dealing much with this document, as we will be dealing with issues, I hope. And we've got a pilot program. We're going to have some issues, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be able to do and what's going to happen next year and the following year.
I don't ever have much to say, but I'm appreciative that we have so many positive, things to come out of this, and that everybody works together. So.
I hope that we are still being live streamed, and I hope that live stream is being recorded because I think we had a really important conversation today, particularly those that had concerns about this. They were concerns that I had not considered, and they were it's very valuable to hear them, and I think we did a good job as a group to address them too, and I hope that the people that are not here right now listen to this conversation and learn from it.
I'm brandy new, so this was very informative for me. I learned a lot. And I think what's kind of cool is the process does work, and I think we've made a lot of progress. I learned a lot about the alliances as well and how they all come together and the structure of them. And my background is, again, Rotary. You kind of see where it's going, and it's going in that kind of the same direction, and it works. So I'm excited about it. It's really a pretty neat experience for me.
I'm just pleased that the process brought some comfort, and I'm excited that it's moving ahead and probably faster than I would have expected.
Echo what everybody's saying in general. I think it's really exciting to be part of a process that moves in the way this has. I've been part of a lot of organizations that have tried to get started and haven't gotten anywhere, and I've tracked a lot of organizations in this space that have faded out. And this kind of thing really gives a sense that we're actually can do something.
So I'll check out, and then you can finish up. No, stay here. So I really think we did well together, and I think this worked. And Rick, I want to honor your integrity for saying exactly where you are, raising really important issues. And I'm of the way of thinking that if there are difficult issues in the democratic work and everything is unanimous, then there was a steamroll. And so I just wanted to say that. I want him to check out. Okay. Yeah. Oh, actually, he's going to get the last word. So, did you want to? Yeah.
One of the things Reds really hate is being steamrolled. Okay? And just the way this process was run, with the enthusiasm all first, and then the concerns later, I felt processed.
Okay. Well, there you go. You're sharing it. Okay.
So on behalf of Riley and Mike and the people that are running the pilots and all that, I just feel appreciative of all the comments and the concerns. I really do that. A lot of effort has gone into this. And I think, again, the viewpoint diversity of all of this, right? It is not important that we all agree 100%, but I think we have the core of a very solid program that will help move Better Angels to the next step in a reasonable fashion, and I appreciate all the input today.
Okay, well, we're done. Lunchtime. Okay, yeah.